Christopher Nolan's Inception was released in 2010 to a critical and commercial response rarely afforded summer blockbusters. A time-twisting tale of mind manipulation and dream theft, it was an instant classic, a box office smash, and cemented Nolan's status as the biggest event movie maker this century. My name is John, and I'm here with Matt.
Forgive me for wanting a little specificity, Eames. Specificity?
And Westy.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
Forget reality, all the right movies are talking paradoxes, subconscious security, and Inception. It's perfectly possible, it's just bloody difficult. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a podcast within a podcast within a podcast within a podcast. I'm lost already. On classic and hit films, today we're looking at Christopher Nolan's time-bending, mind-bending Inception. And as ever, we'll have laughs and opinions that are a dream come true as we bring you the making of story behind a modern science fiction classic.
Yeah.
Just before we start though, for anybody that doesn't know, All the Right Movies are on Patreon. So if you like our podcast and would like access to bonus episodes and our full archive of all their episodes, you should check out patreon.com/all the right movies.
Yes, it definitely should. Yeah.
Loads of good stuff on there.
So back to reality. It's Inception. Why are we talking about the film, Westy?
Is it Chris Nolan's best film? I think it is. Is it one of my favourite films? It definitely is. Is it still really engaging now, 10 years later? Of course it is. It's about psychology, it's about architecture, it's about artwork, it's about Francis Bacon, MC Escher, it's got red wine in it, it's got salad in it, it's got expensive watches in it, it's got gunfights in it, it's got suits in it, it's got fistfights in it, it's got an ambiguous ending and it looks excellent, it looks really expensive, and I'm very excited about this.
That's it. That's the podcast done, I think, isn't it?
And if you'd like to tune in next week.
Well, for me, I like pretty much everything Nolan's done. And Inception is no exception to that. It has just about everything I want in a blockbuster, to be honest.
Yeah.
High concept, which seems crazy on the surface, but is grounded in some sort of reality and logic. It has personal and relatable character drama to make you care about the spectacle when it arrives. And boy, does that spectacle arrive. We have not one, but two. Count them, 2 revolving sets in Inception.
Yeah.
It's crazy, it's smart, there's some impressive filmmaking going on, it's hugely ambitious, and because of all that, there is lots to get into.
Oh, yeah.
And Matt, what about you?
Yeah, so when this came out, it's fair to say that me and Westy were very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Westy still is.
Oh, obviously, yeah. Can you tell? And we had plans to go see it on opening day. But for whatever reason, we couldn't get our diaries to sync up. I think I was working, so I said to Wesley, you just go see it, but let me know as soon as you're out.
We weren't that busy 10 years ago, man. You're full of shit.
Well, something was going on.
Couple of social butterflies.
I didn't even have a diary.
So he sends me the text after he's seen it. All that text said was, top 10.
Yeah. Same shit now.
Exactly. He hasn't changed, listener. So I want to see if it's still in his top 10. But on a personal level, I mean, this film has so much ambition and it has so much scale. And it's event cinema. And there's just so few films that when you come out of them, you would happily go straight back in and watch it all over again.
Yeah.
Just to see how it all comes together. And it's got that little sprinkling of ambiguity in there as well. And I can't wait to get into it. It's absolutely massive.
Sprinkling?
Yeah.
It's a punch in the face. But we'll get to that.
Before we go down below the key details on the movie, Inception was produced by Legendary Pictures and Syncope, distributed by Warner Brothers, and released on July 16th, 2010. Written and directed by Christopher Nolan, produced by Nolan and Emma Thomas. It was filmed in Tokyo, the UK, France, Morocco, Canada, and the US. And the main cast: Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Tom Hardy, Marion Cotillard, Ken Watanabe, Cillian Murphy, and Michael Caine. Obviously. Should we head into Nolan's dream world then?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, we're talking the start of Inception, and that's coming up next.
Good night, boys.
The beginning.
dramatic, the music in Inception, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
It ramps the tension up exactly when it needs to, and then it's really emotive when it needs to be. It's just how
Deciding that the concept of Inception wasn't confusing enough, Nolan starts the movie where it ends, and we see Leonardo DiCaprio's Dom Cobb trying to extract info from the dreams of Ken Watanabe's Saito in an action-packed opener. We're going to talk about Cobb recruiting his team after Saito hires him, but we're starting with that opening sequence. The beginning of Inception introduces us to subconscious security and dream theft, as well as two of our main characters in Cobb and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Arthur. So, Westy, how's this for an opening sequence?
Oh, it's superb, isn't it? I mean, from the opening shot, just that close-up of the water and the soundtrack. When I saw this in IMAX, I was just immediately saw the shot of the ocean, and I was like, well, this is massive even from a close-up, and that lovely set. And you just think, well, this has got such an elegance to it, it's got such a grandeur to it, it's such a huge scale. And when Mal's there and she's looking at the painting, which was done by Francis Bacon, which I mentioned at the top, that was painted for his ex-lover who died, and he wanted to keep him in his reality, so he made that painting for him. So that's the significance of that. And one of the coolest things that I've seen, that I've never seen in any film since or before, is DiCaprio catching them shells so that they don't make any noise into the further dream state, you know, and he's shooting the gun and he's just catching that. I was like, that's just fucking cool as ice pops. It's a really brilliant opening.
I agree. I think it's really, really good as well. I think one of the purposes of an opening sequence is to almost encapsulate the film as a whole, to set our expectation for what's coming. And Inception does that great. Narratively, it moves like a rocket. You need to pay attention to every frame, every line, or you're lost. When the spectacle comes, it's big and it's inventive. And there's enough exposition in this first 15 minutes to power an entire film.
Yeah.
And we get introduced to Cobb, Arthur, Saito, and Mal. So this opening sets audience expectation for what's to come perfectly, all the while being interesting and exciting. I'm in right from the off.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a great opening, isn't it? Because right from the start, Nolan is pretty much daring you to keep up with him. You know, he's not going to give you the same piece of information twice. You know, I don't mind admitting, I think it was probably my third viewing of this that I finally realised what the significance is of that line about the rug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First couple times, I was like, why is he going on about a rug? What's that mean? It's not the Big Lebowski. You know, I do not get the importance of that. It's not tying this room together, I tell you that much.
Tying his dreams together.
So I love all that. I love how he's just straight in there. Keep up with him if you can. And what I really, really get out of this sequence, and it always just makes me happy seeing it, is how lo-fi everything seems for this massive concept. Like, to wake DiCaprio up, that slow-mo shot of him tied to a chair, falling backwards into a bath of water. It's so ingenious, but it's so simple. And I just love how the kit itself, it just comes in a suitcase. They're not in like cryogenic tubes or a chamber or something like that. All you need is in a suitcase, and they can go off on their own. It all seems very kind of lo-fi, and I love that.
Yeah, the suitcase thing is so simple. That's surely called the Dream Machine. Surely. It's got to be called
has to be.
It's not made by Tommy. It's a bit more serious than that.
Well, this opening sequence is the point in the film that we meet a major character in Saito, played by Ken Watanabe. He sets the story in motion by asking Cobb to perform Inception on his business rival Robert Fisher, played by Cillian Murphy, and offering Cobb a way back home to his children if he succeeds. How do you think Ken Watanabe does as Saito in the film?
I think he's great. I think he's totally believable. He's got such an elegance to the character that you kind of believe his position, and he's just got that real kind of power and a real prowess to him. And I love like all the makeup and everything, and the way he's aged. And then when he acts that, again, that's really believable. So he brings this real weight again to the character, which really works. To answer your question, yeah, Watanabe fits in there absolutely perfectly.
In terms of Watanabe, I think he adds a certain weight to the story, and being Japanese adds to the feel of it being a James Bond-style globe-trotting adventure, I think. I know Nolan wrote the part of Saito specifically for Watanabe because he felt that even though Watanabe had been in Batman Begins, he didn't have as much screen time as Nolan would have liked. So, yeah, I think he's a really good inclusion in the cast.
He just classes up the joint, doesn't he?
He really does.
Their man is a sheer class, and he's no different here. I like how he's introduced, and you're not actually sure kind of what he is. He seems like he could be a gangster with all his kind of minions around him. The thing I find really effective is how it sets him up. I feel like it's setting him up for you to believe that he's going to be the antagonist in this film. I think you're supposed to doubt whether he's going to follow through on his pledge to Cobb or not. But as the film goes on, I think he becomes really, really likeable. And he becomes such like a main part of that group that when he gets injured in the dream, I think you really want him to get out. And I think you're really caring about Saito on that level. Yeah, he's great. I really, really like his performance in this.
From that surreal opener, Cobb agrees to one last job and starts to recruit the rest of the team who will help him and Arthur perform Inception. In the next few sequences, we head to Paris, then Kenya, to meet Ellen Page's Ariadne and Tom Hardy's Eames. What do we think of the scenes in Paris between Cobb and Ariadne, first of all?
The first thing that I think is really impressive about this scene is how Nolan is playing with film grammar. Because when he goes from talking to Ariadne in the college and then to the dream, it just feels like a totally normal cut you get in any other film between scenes. Like if you think of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when Indy and Marcus have met Elsa and she's telling them about the museum, which is in the show looks like a library, and then it cuts to them in the library still talking. You totally buy that. That's just film grammar. That's how editing works. But what Nolan does, he uses that, but then he turns it on its head by telling you, well, actually, that has just cut us to a dream. And just like Ariadne, you're completely in the dark. And I just think it's so clever the way he's done it. And I love how once she realises she's in the dream, she gets really like giddy and excited by the concept, and the camera becomes like a bit more handheld, a bit more looser, like emphasises actually this is quite a dangerous thing she's been sucked into, and she's kind of way over her head despite all this talent she's got. So I think it's a really, really effective way of introducing her character and just explaining more about what she's going to bring to the team. I think it's great.
Paris, or as Nolan calls it, Exposition City. I'm not sure I've ever seen a sequence with as much exposition crammed into it as Cobb and Ariadne in Cobb's Dream, but to be honest, I do think Nolan does it brilliantly. If you're feeding a lot of exposition, I think you have to justify it by making the scene visually interesting, which is why we often see exposition in action scenes. This isn't an action scene, and it's literally non-stop expository dialogue for over 10 minutes. But when you're talking about visually interesting, this is just a masterclass. The moment Ariadne turns the city on top of itself is ridiculous. One of the most recognisable images in the last 10 years. And also the things Cobb's telling Ariadne and us about how it all works, I just find fascinating. I think this is one of my favourite exposition scenes. Everyone's got a favourite exposition scene, right?
Of course.
Top 10.
Yeah, it's superb. I love the way she does that Drosty effect with the mirror on the bridge. It still baffles my mind, like, where's the camera? Oh, it just doesn't exist. It's superbly done. Like you say, when Paris comes in on itself, it reminds me of some of the heavier influences on Nolan, which is Dark City. I don't know if you've seen that. Cobb talking to Ariadne, it reminds me of Morpheus talking to Neo when he's explaining the Matrix. So all these different elements are coming into play. For me, that cafe sequence is just out of this world. And the way they shot that, which is just so impressive. The visual effects supervisor on the film, Chris Corbould, who worked on the Dark Knight trilogy, and his team used air cannons to send the objects flying through the air. And then Wally Pfister shot it with 6 high-speed cameras at 1,500 frames a second. Obviously, everything's normally shot 24 frames a second, so you can imagine how many frames are running through that camera. So then when you slow it down, you just get that really super slow motion. But then there was extra elements of CGI added just to make it a little bit more flamboyant. But I love that when she's just starting to freak out. You just think, Jesus Christ, this could go anywhere. I love it.
Paris isn't just about dream-based exposition, though. We've got character exposition as well. So this is also the moment where we learn who Marl is, Cobb's wife who killed herself because she thought she was in a dream, played by Marion Cotillard. I suppose Marl is the closest thing we get to an antagonist in the film.
I think she's fantastic as that femme fatale figure. When you first see her, she's almost like a Bond villain. She's always sharp in everything I've seen her in. She's fantastic. I love her as an actress anyway. But what she brings to this, again, is a real class, a real sense of regret for Cobb, and I think you can see it straight away, and I think this is what it's about. It's Cobb's Inception. It's about regret. It's about guilt. It's about forgiving yourself and choosing a reality that you're happy with. What you choose to be your reality is where you live, and I think that's what this film's about. Even though it's got this amazing subplot with Fisher, you learn now it's all about Cobb. It's all about him getting over this guilt, figuring out how to live his life. There's a real expectation on her, because if she doesn't perform, his story, his whole reason for going through all of this shit doesn't make sense, but she does. She lands every single emotional blow, and I think she's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, she's superb, considering you could argue she's not even a character, she's just a manifestation of someone else's guilt, and she still makes that wholly believable and fills it with so much of her own kind of presence. And as you say, she starts off as feeling like she's going to be the antagonist, that she's going to be this kind of psychotic presence throughout the film, but she brings so much guilt into that and so much regret and so much tragedy that she becomes like a fully rounded character in her own right. You know, she goes from being really alluring to really scary times, like that scene where she comes out of the crowd in that first frame and stabs Ariadne.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely terrifying, that.
Yeah.
I think there's probably like a wider argument about how much of a cliche it is to have the dead wife as the motivation for the main character, especially when Nolan uses it a lot in his films. He loves that cliche. If I was Emma Thomas, Nolan's wife, I'd be a bit worried about how much he loves dead wives. Yeah, he keeps going back there. But she takes what could be a real cliche and just gives it so much vitality. It's a great performance.
Well, as good as she is, Marion Cotillard wasn't the first person Nolan asked to play Mal. Do you know who was?
I would guess Anne Hathaway, just because he likes his little collection of actors, doesn't he?
It was Kate Winslet.
Oh, nice.
Okay, right.
She actually turned the role down because she said she couldn't see herself as the character. What would you have thought of that?
I think there would have been too many comparisons to the reunited again after Titanic, and
Yeah.
they are great together, but I think they couldn't play a couple because it would always hark back to that, and it would just create a different world in your head, really, if they survived the Titanic and they had, an argument. As good as they are as actors as well, I think that's just too powerful culturally to try and eliminate. So I think Cotillard was the perfect choice.
You'd have too many people saying, Inception is like Jack's dying dream, isn't it? 'Cause he's
Definitely.
freezing to death.
It's why the water comes in at the start, like he's washed up on the
exactly.
shore. It's like,
Exactly.
he made it.
Yeah. Nolan made a stealth sequel to Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have had her in there, as great as she is.
When Kate Winslet turned it down, though, I bet the studio were devastated. Leo and Kate together again at last. I mean, ka-ching.
Yeah, so obviously Nolan, he loves like his kind of small collection of actors that he can rely on. He keeps going back to them. So obviously you've got Michael Caine in here for a bit of an extended cameo as Miles, Cobb's father-in-law. And the scene between Cobb and Miles, where he tells him to come back to reality, that's not actually a set, that was shot on location.
Right.
It's the architecture school at University College London, and that's where Nolan actually studied and met his wife, Emma Thomas, who is
nice.
also producer on this and many other of Nolan's films.
Lovely.
Always in there for Nolan, isn't he? Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Loves
Yeah.
him.
Good luck, Charles.
Forget the ending of Inception. The real question is, are we in a real Nolan film if Michael Caine's not in it?
No. Dunkirk didn't exist.
Following Paris, Cobb is off to Kenya to find his next team members. That's Eames and Yusuf, played by Dilip Rao. This sequence includes a foot chase through the streets where Cobb is attacked by Cobalt Engineering, who want him after his failure in the opening, all to the sounds of a frantic Hans Zimmer score. The setting is, and the music is called, Mombasa. I mean, if you're being chased through the streets of Mombasa by Cobalt Engineering, this is the music you want spurring you on, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would just put headphones on if I was doing that. Like, hold on a second. Stick your cans on. Right, continue.
What do you think of this as an action scene?
I think it's a great action sequence. The Matrix has got a lot to answer for. There's the foot chase with the agents chasing Neo kind of at the end of the Matrix, which I think it mirrors that really well. I think the overhead shots make it look like a maze. I think there's that theme going all the way through the film. I love the way that there's that narrow corridor, which again, I think Nolan just makes this into almost like a dream sequence in itself to make you question, is this reality or is this a dream? Mm-hmm. So it's just Nolan kind of fucking with you and just making this really interesting foot chase. I've never seen DiCaprio more desperate to get one cup of coffee in all my life. What cafe? What cafe? This guy's giving him loads of shit. What for? He's just come in. He just wants a coffee.
I know.
Yeah.
Does he yell at all his customers?
He must do. It's ridiculous. But what I do love in this sequence as well is the introduction of Hardy. I think Tom Hardy in this, it's a superb performance. Even his dialogue's just like normal speech. It's brilliant. And when he's like, there's a man here, Yusuf.
It's great.
He's just great. He's like, what, back here? Yeah. Yeah, okay. He's like great little lines. I love this whole sequence. It's got all them kind of real action elements to it. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't think Nolan is shy about his influences, is he? Definitely Raiders in there. I think before the action starts, it feels very much like Casablanca.
Yeah.
Like there could be in Rick's Cafe You know, Humphrey Bogart just out of shot there. But yeah, I've always loved that wall that seems to be getting more and more narrow, even though it shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think it's Nolan just looking at common film grammar, stuff that we used to, and think, well, hang on, if I'm making a story about are we in a dream, are we not in a dream, so much of this stuff is going to feel much more ambiguous than it would do normally. Because, yeah, in an ordinary film, I'm not going to question Saito just pulling up out of nowhere. That happens in films.
Yeah, that's fine.
But here, you never know. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is all just a bit too convenient. So it just works on two levels. Just on that first level of just an action scene. Yeah, great. But look at it again. There's more going on there than you think there is.
The question I've got as well is, like, when you're introduced to Hardy and he's rubbing them chips together, and then DiCaprio picks the top chip up and says, I see your spelling hasn't improved. So he's spelled Mombasa with 2 S's. So obviously he's forged the chips.
Yeah.
But people are saying that one of them chips is actually he's taught him.
Okay.
Oh.
That's pretty cool, right?
Could be. It really could be.
And he's misspelled it because only he knows how he's misspelled it.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does make sense.
The first act of the film is pretty exceptional. Inceptional, if you like.
Oh, dearie. Oh.
It's John finished.
Nolan, DiCaprio, Zimmer, all at their best. And a beautiful French femme fatale, I Must Be Dreaming.
Or not.
The director.
Raring to go from a young age, the inception of Inception came to Christopher Nolan when he was just 16 and was in his subconscious ever since. The writer and director of Inception, it was a bit of a passion project for Nolan and entirely his vision. What are our thoughts on Christopher Nolan more generally, to start with, aside from Inception?
So, Nolan, 11 films, only one of those are actively disliked, so that's a pretty good rate. And he's one of the few directors where I will go see a film on his name alone. You could give me a blind screen and I wouldn't even need to see a trailer. I wouldn't need to know a synopsis. I wouldn't need to know who's in it, even what the title is. Just tell me it's a Chris Nolan film and I'll be in there. And there's not many directors I would say that about. And all of his films, they've all got massive, massive ambition. Like I say, I don't like Interstellar, but I would never say it's not ambitious. No. And sometimes that ambition does exceed his grasp. But when it doesn't, and when he can meet the heights of what he wants to achieve with a film, you're going to get something really special. And I think that's why you go with Inception.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I'm the same as Matt. We don't go and see every film together, do we, mate? But
no. Yeah, we better nip that in the bud.
Did go and see Interstellar, and I was a bit disappointed by that, because what I love about Nolan is his ethic, and I love how he keeps everything has a reality to it, everything has an explanation, everything has a scientific reasoning, so you kind of just walk out and go, oh, well, that was bullshit. So I think with this, it's that grounding. He's got that real dedication to the process. He's got a real dedication to the medium, and he really respects film. And I think you'd be the same, like, if you go over Chris Nolan's house and he makes you tea, like, it's just going to be so fucking meticulous, isn't it? It's not going to be like beans on toast or something. It's going to be something like what Arthur's eating on the plane. It's going to be like a perfect salad and a perfect bowl, and it's going to be the right size bowl, and it's going to be the right fork, and it's going to be the perfect amount of dressing. It's just going to be right, you know, because he just believes in it. And I think he believes in cinema, and he believes in the medium, and he's as close, I'll say it, I'm going to put it out there, and I'm honestly going to say he's as close as anyone has got to being Kubrick since Kubrick.
Bold claim.
Yeah, I think Interstellar is massively influenced by 2001, isn't it?
Oh, hugely.
Oh, yeah.
Nolan actually first pitched the idea of Inception to Warner Brothers after his third movie, Insomnia, way back in 2002. They loved the idea and gave it the go-ahead on the back of an 80-page treatment Nolan had. He wanted to write the full script first, though, to ensure he kept as much creative control as possible, and told them he'd show them a finished spec script in a couple of months. Sensible choice by Nolan, that, do you think, to finish the script first?
I think so, yeah. Specifically because of the high concept he's working with. You can't go in with this like half-arsed. You know, so there's going to be questions, and you couldn't go, well, I haven't worked that bit out yet. Yeah. But don't worry, it'll be fine. He's got to have the answers, hasn't he?
Well, plans for writing that script were shelved when Nolan was offered Batman Begins, the movie which changed his career. He kept on going back to the Inception script in between projects like The Prestige and The Dark Knight, and finally gave a finished script to Warner's in 2009, which, after the runaway success of The Dark Knight, they lapped up. So what do we think of Nolan's work on Inception as the director?
I think the original script for this is going to be about 100 times more complicated than the finished version of the film. Like, can you imagine just his thoughts on a script? I think Chris Nolan probably woke up in the morning and be like, Emma, finished Inception. It's just like this massive Bible, and she's like going through it. She's like, fucking hell, Chris, let's just break this down. And I think like Warner's would have just, after The Dark Knight, you could have given them anything. He's like, oh, I'm just going to do a Playmobil movie. Yeah, fucking whatever, man, it'd be amazing. So it could have been anything. So they would have read that as like stereo instructions and just been like, well, if you can make that, fine. How much do you need? I think this is his most personal film. I think this is a film about his process, which we'll get into later. I do think this is about filmmaking. I do think it is about the impact of movies on the psychology of people. And I think only someone like Chris Nolan could do that with such a scholar's touch. I think he's got that. It always feels like when you finish watching these films and you understand them, like someone's going to turn up and just give you a degree and just give you a scroll and just say like, did you get that? Congratulations, you're in the club.
Well done.
You're 70 times more intelligent than the average film goer. Without being pretentious though, without being a wanker about it, you just respect him for that because he just believes in what he believes in and he delivers it. Especially on this. I think this is his most accomplished film, easily.
Yeah, I think it's certainly among his best work. It looks great, typical Nolan, grandiose and huge, which is one of the things I love about him. He really commits to these crazy concepts and puts himself out there to be shot down if people don't like what he does. And Inception might be the best example of that. I like how, because of the huge concept, he sticks to what he knows. Hans Zimmer, composer, Wally Pfister, DP, Chris Corbould, effects supervisor, all back from The Dark Knight. And I love every casting choice in the film. Nolan gets at least one of my favourite performances out of every member of the cast.
Yeah,
I think this film is definitive Nolan for me. One of his defining films.
Easily.
Yeah, it's not quite my favourite Nolan film, but...
Shut up, man, Matt.
It's still going to be The Prestige for me.
That's becoming your catchphrase, that, Westy.
I'm going to do it every single episode. Shut up, man, Matt.
But I do think Inception has got everything that's great about Nolan as a director. His best qualities, well, he treats his audience with as much intelligence as he's got. He has absolute faith that you can keep up with him and you'll understand. And if you do, you're going to get so rewarded at the end because he can pay a film off like few other filmmakers can. And his ability to orchestrate these massive set pieces that work on a visual level, but have also got something to keep your brain ticking over as well, to go back to the extraction of sight, or how that just keeps building and building, more peril, more levels to understand, more questions, more answers. And what he's done, he's constructed a film where you could balance the plot of this on the end of a pendulum. And it wouldn't sway to the left, and it wouldn't sway to the right. It would just hang there, perfectly poised. It's amazing what he's done as a director.
Is that your totem, Matt? The pendulum?
It is, yes. I'm not telling you how heavy it feels, though.
Bit chunky to carry around, that, isn't
it? Inception had a budget of $160 million, and a lot of that naturally went on the huge visual effects we see in the film. Something we've talked about on our podcast before is how we like to see a blend of visual effects rather than using CGI for everything. Use the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
And I do think that's something that Nolan does really well. So in Inception, we have huge sets, miniatures, models, air cannons, lots of stunt work, and CGI. How good a job do you think Nolan does in blending all of these various kinds of effects into Inception?
As good a job as I've ever seen anyone do, blending these together. Honestly, I do. I can't tell where the practical ends and where the CG begins. I can't tell what's green screen, what's an actual set that he built. Even the stuff that has to be CG, like the city folding in on itself, even that, it still feels like I could touch that road. I can't get my head around it. I can't even begin to figure out how he puts them together. I think it's the biggest compliment you can pay. You just don't know where one bit of it ends, the practical stuff, and where the CG begins. It's seamless.
Yeah. I know that Inception has 500 digital effect shots in total. To give some context, a typical blockbuster from the time would have over 2,000 digital effect shots.
Yeah.
Wow. I've got a quote from Nolan on that where he said, "It was very important to me that we do as much as possible in camera and then use technology to enhance that. I think an audience pays much more attention and feels much more involved with that."
Very much like Fincher in that respect, in that he uses it to enhance the story. And that city folding in on itself, I mean, if you look at just the lighting design on that CG, it's just perfect. The way the shadows fall against the bottom city and then the top one comes in. But the genius of that is that when it actually clicks and you cut to the next shot, that's obviously just an upside down camera shooting the street. So they're two physical, practical effects put together. But what
Right.
you've seen is this city come over, and then you've seen a real city shot upside down. So your head just goes, well, that's just the same thing then. And the bit I love is the cars going down the fountain. Have you noticed that on the
Yeah.
right-hand side? They're going down the water fountain. They're kind of like driving straight
Yeah.
down. He's doing it for the right reasons, and he's blended
Yeah.
it perfectly. And it still stands up now. You can't really give it any kind of criticism at all. It's brilliant.
Inception was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. It lost out to
Oh, King's Speech, wasn't it?
The King's Speech. The right choice?
No.
Fuck no. The rule of thirds, I call that. It's a shower of shit.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To finish on Christopher Nolan as a director of Inception, I've got a quote from the man himself. He said, "With Inception, my ambition was to create a story that embraced all different types of human experience. I like to think it's the kind of massively entertaining, grand-scale action film that I want to come on the screen when I sit in a movie theatre."
Fantastic.
And he delivered.
The cast.
Every director depends on his cast, and the cast of Inception includes 5 Oscar nominees and 3 Oscar winners, so big talent all across the board. There's a lot to go through, so we're going to go in depth on the main members of Cobb's team. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Point Man Arthur, Ellen Page as the architect Ariadne, and Tom Hardy as the forger Eames are all coming. But where else to start than with the biggest star and main character in Inception, the one and only Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 nominees and 3 winners of Oscars, and Leonardo DiCaprio was the biggest name. He plays Dom Cobb, a mind thief who is the best extractor in the business. He's hired by Saito to perform Inception on Robert Fisher in exchange for being able to return home and be reunited with his children. What are our thoughts on LDC generally, first of all?
Generally, I think he's a fantastic actor. I think he always has been. Everyone kind of goes back to Titanic. He's great in that. He does what he needs to, but it's his later roles as he's matured and his choices that he's made that has really made me pay attention. You know, he's gone from being just a generic poster boy to being like a seriously great, one of the greats. I think he's going to go down as one of the greats. I mean, he's got that real kind of relatable quality. It's as if you know him. If you watch him in The Departed, he owns that film, and there's just so many people littered around that. And one of my favourite performances is Shutter Island. I think he's just fucking mesmerising in that. So fragile, but amazing. Similar in this, amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's fantastic, isn't he? I think the great Hollywood names tend to fall into one of 2 camps for me. Either they're a great movie star or they're a great actor or actress. DiCaprio was one of the very few in history, I think, who was a great movie star and a great actor.
Yeah.
I think what he does as well as anybody I've ever seen is draw you into the story. He's just so engaging on the screen, conveys emotions brilliantly. And as a lead carrying a movie, he's the best there is for me. The Wolf of Wall Street, I think, is a good example. An epic 3-hour biopic directed by one of the greats in Scorsese. All rest on DiCaprio's shoulders, and he carries it effortlessly. And he chooses his project so well. His filmography is just sensational.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the man. I think throughout his career, he's just shown real bravery. People always forget he's given one of the all-time great child performances in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I think because that was pre-Titanic, people have just forgotten about that completely, and they really shouldn't. So if you haven't seen that, go back, check it out, because he was so young when he made that, and it's an incredible performance. Yes. Like Westy said, I think he does an absolutely fine job in Titanic. I enjoy him in that a lot. But I can only imagine the amount of job offers he got after that. That were basically just Jack Dawson. You know, Jack Dawson in space.
That sounds great.
I mean, I would have taken it.
Anything in space sounds great to you, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
But he didn't do those roles. And after Titanic, he wanted to work with interesting directors. You know, he went and worked with Woody Allen. He worked with Spielberg, obviously Scorsese, Inarritu, and now Nolan. So he's got such a good nose for a project. And he's so clear about what he wants to do as an actor. But he's not lazy with it either. When you've got the amount of fame that he has got, you could just take those roles and be quite lazy in them. But the amount of detail he brings to every single character, that's why he's, you know, at the top of his game.
LDC was the only person ever in serious consideration for the role of Cobb, but 2 other big names were discussed before DiCaprio was approached. Any idea who they were?
No idea and no interest.
I'm telling you anyway.
I know you are.
So Brad Pitt and Will Smith were 2 names bandied about.
Right.
Okay.
Would you have liked either of those?
No, I can't see Will Smith doing that role. He doesn't have the kind of intensity that DiCaprio has. He's more lightweight, and he's good at what he does, but I can't see him being as convincing
Yeah, I mean, two very, very good actors in their own right, but I
Yeah,
think,
of course
you know,
they are,
the material here, and I think the amount of depth that he brought to the character and the script as well, I think the amount he was invested in this. The other two actors that you mentioned would have just played it as it was on the page. I think they wouldn't have brought that level of personality to it that he does here.
So DiCaprio was the first person cast in the film, and Nolan saw casting him as so important that every other cast member was hired based on how Nolan felt they would work with DiCaprio.
Right.
So how do we think DiCaprio does in Inception as Dom Cobb?
He does really well. He completely convinces you that this is a guy with secrets and a guy with history. And he always looks to me, he looks like really pinched throughout the film, like it's almost literally crushing him, the stuff that he kind of just has to work through and get off his chest.
Yeah.
So completely convincing as a leader, as someone who other people will follow. And, you know, pretty much everyone does follow him without question, because I think he's got that natural authority to him. But I guess I'll go back to what I said about him in general. It's just not my favourite kind of performance from DiCaprio. So I think he's really good in it, but it would probably be relatively low down my list of favourite DiCaprio performances.
Yeah, besides DiCaprio's performance, which I do think is fantastic, what's impressive is how much of a role he played in actually improving the film from a writing point of view.
Yeah.
So Nolan said, Leo made some extraordinary contributions to the script and really challenged us to make the script clear and also to follow its logic. The work he did in his character made the movie less of a puzzle and more of a story of a character audiences could relate to.
Right.
Okay.
So he upped the personal drama stakes that surround Cobb and around his children and wanting to get back home, which is definitely for the best in the film, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Needs that, yeah.
It's the fire that drives the character, and he does it without sounding hammy and without sounding cheesy. He does some really subtle performances in this. I mean, when he actually wakes up on the plane, his expressions just, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. It's fantastic. But yeah, he's brilliant. Owns the character, I think.
Yeah, I think he brings a real personal weight to the film that just wouldn't be there without him. What's your favourite DiCaprio moment in the film?
My favourite moment is probably the most emotional of the film, as usual. It's just when he's, you know...
Miserable, is it?
Uplifting, John. It's uplifting. You know me. Find happiness in misery. Yeah, it's when he's talking to Mal at the end, and it's just him facing his guilt, and it's the most important dialogue scene in the film, and for me, probably one of the most important scenes in the film. It's not a massive set piece. It's two characters sitting across each other from a table, and he's just admitting that he's wrong, and you can just see that he's just slowly realising that he's getting over it, and you just believe it. Just the way the camera's just pushing slowly, his expressions, everything. So great. So great.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think DiCaprio was fantastic at conveying emotions in a clear but not heavy-handed way. There's a few examples in Inception, but I think he's especially great in the scene where Cobb watches Mal jump from the hotel window. That scene, I mean, it's one of the worst things a person can possibly witness, and it's drama almost to the point of non-believability. But with DiCaprio's performance, I believe it 100%. The way he's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, better than that, obviously. But
slightly, just slightly.
Don't take yourself down too much, John.
But I totally buy that scene because of his performance in it. I think he's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bit I want to talk about is the whole Mr. Charles Gambit scene. Because there's so much like emotional stuff going on, you could be forgiven for forgetting that Cobb is the top man at his job. And what I love about the scene is it's all about the job now. All the stuff with Mal, that's in the background. It's about him stepping up to the plate when it's needed. And I just love how he just strolls into that bar, goes up to Fisher. He does tell him he's in a dream, but he does it with so much confidence and so much charm that he just doesn't break the mission for a minute. And I just like how it reminds you that, you know, he's an absolute expert at this kind of stuff. Cillian Murphy ends up hanging on his every word that he says, and DiCaprio's got him in the palm of his hand, and he just carries him out of there. It's brilliant.
I mean, mostly everybody gets their chance to play James Bond in this film at some point. You know, and I think this is DiCaprio's version of that character, you know, that suave and that sophistication. And then when Gordon Levitt's just watching him in the foyer, he's like, there he goes. You're like, yeah, there he goes. Fucking right.
Yeah.
For his work on Inception, DiCaprio got nothing. Overlooked by everybody, basically. No BAFTA, Golden Globes, Oscar recognition. So to finish on Leonardo DiCaprio in Inception, Leo himself says about the film, Inception is testament to Chris Nolan's imagination. I'm still excited to have done this movie, and I'm sleeping great. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Glad to hear it.
Took one of the suitcases home, that's why.
The Dream Machine.
I'm not calling it that, John. I don't care how many times today you bring it up. I'm not calling it
about
that.
4 seconds worth of thought went into that, John.
Don't be so proud of it.
To carry out their plan, every extractor needs a point man, and that position here is filled by Cobb's right-hand man Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. At Cobb's side, from inception to inception, Arthur is the details man, the dreamer for level 2 of Cobb's plan, and is involved in the most iconic action scene in the film. He's a stick in the mud with no imagination, but he's the best at what he does. What do we think of Arthur and Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
I really like him, and I think Gordon-Levitt does a really good job, considering 80% of the time he's just telling Ariadne about Cobb's backstory. So it takes a good actor to carry off that much character exposition and still make him believable and watchable. He's just such the right person when you want the best friend in a film. He completely convinces you as the right-hand man, so dependable. He's never going to let you down. It's quite a quiet performance in some ways, but I think that contrasts well with what DiCaprio's doing. And I think Gordon-Levitt does that really, really well. I really like him in this.
Yeah, I like the bond that Cobb and Arthur have. What's great that Nolan does actually is how he creates all these different dynamics between the main characters. So Arthur is maybe the best example, where he has a totally different relationship with Cobb to what he does with Ariadne and to what he does with Eames as well. I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt generally, and I really like him in Inception. He plays it all very reserved and understated, which works perfectly for the character. And he nails his action scenes too. I think he's great, really, really good.
Yeah, I like him generally, but this is for me his performance without a shadow of a doubt. If I imagine him in anything, I imagine him as Arthur in this.
Yeah.
And I think because Cobb's just so busy with his subconscious, I think that Arthur comes along as his conscious. I love the way that Cobb goes a little bit over the top with Saito at the start and starts talking about intestinal ulcers or whatever he's talking about, and then Arthur's got to step in and he's like, well, what he's trying to say, and he's always just the guy to kind of straighten things out. And as Matt touched on, he is, Mr. Exposition pretty much all the way through the film, but he does it in such a way that it doesn't seem boring. He makes you feel like, yes, this is a really heavy concept, but when he's explaining something, he does it in such a way that it's not patronising, but it's quite simple. When he's trying to explain the totem, and then Alan Page interrupts him, and then he goes back and just explains it again really calmly. He's fantastic, and he looks great. I mean, I haven't seen him look better. His wardrobe's fucking outrageous. Yeah. He just looks fucking great. Like in the LA sequence, why aren't them leather jackets? You know who fucked that up? David Brent with his brown leather jacket. So I've got about 3 of them in the wardrobe that I can't wear anymore. He never once says, oh, well, no, fuck it then. Ames says that. But you've always got Arthur, and you've always got that performance from Levitt that's always that real grounding to the whole film and the character. Yeah, he's wonderful.
Before JGL was cast, Nolan was in talks with James Franco to play Arthur, but that fell through when there was scheduling conflicts with 127 Hours, which Franco starred in. Would you change it if you could?
No.
No, I like Franco, but he's too much of a loose cannon, I think, for the kind of straight man that Arthur is. I think he wouldn't be the right fit.
I think everyone is so good in this that you wouldn't change anyone, would you, really? No. I mean, I think they bring a lot of personality to it that I wouldn't change anybody in it.
Inception was a big step up for JGL. He'd done lots of features before Inception, most notably Treasure Planet, Break, 500 Days of Summer, and G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, but nothing with the status of Inception. When he went for the audition, he didn't know anything about the part because Nolan wouldn't let anybody read the script, but he went dressed in a full suit, just in case, he said, and unknowingly matched Arthur's wardrobe perfectly.
Oh, nice.
I mean, he does look great in those 3-piece suits, doesn't he?
Stylish man.
Superb. The opposite of me in a 3-piece suit.
What's your favourite Arthur moment in the film?
It's a really small one, but it's when Ariadne asks him what Mal was like, and he just goes, oh, she was lovely.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a sign of a great actor that he can take just 3 words and he invests so much in there. There's admiration, there's regret, there's grief, there's happiness reflecting on someone who was obviously a good friend to him. And it just turns your interpretation of Mal really nicely, because I think certainly at this point, you think whenever she turns up, she's going to be trouble. Mm-hmm. This turns it on its head, and he sells that line really beautifully. So it's really simple, but that's just a real standout for me.
Lovely that. Welling up here, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Again, yeah. But you're right. I mean, he is, again, like I said, Cobb's conscience. Like, that is what Malda's really like. 3 words from Arthur, and you know that, oh, well, if you just choose reality and just remember her as she was, then it'll work. And he does that in 3 words. Yeah, absolutely right. It's fucking superb.
That comes just after the Penrose steps scene, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where Arthur teaches Ariadne about paradoxes. Those steps are based on a print done by a Dutch artist called M.C. Escher in the 60s.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's impossible to build an infinite staircase in the real world, so they had to conceive and construct something from scratch that, when shot from a specific angle, created that illusion. I know Wally Pfister, the DP, played a big part in that, and he said about building those steps, it had to be mathematically perfect. A particular lens at a particular height and distance, and the camera had to drop in a particular way to hide the trickery. I mean, all of that for like a 5-second shot in the film.
Yeah, but it's a great callback later, isn't it? One of the end of his action sequences, he's like, paradox.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's worth it just for that delivery.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, my favourite, man, there's a few favourite bits, but I love it when his character, with so little dialogue, has to figure out a problem as he's going. There's no gravity, how do I drop you without gravity, you know, and he's trying to figure it all out, and it's just very slow paced, but he does it so well, and you can see his whole thought process, you know, figuring it out. I mean, the way he stacks everybody up, ties them all around, puts them in the elevator, like, you believe all of it, and then just that little bit when he's like, oh, that's too soon.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's just the essence of the character with such little dialogue. I mean, if I put that in a script where you stack all of the cast members up and then tie them up with telephone wire, you'd go, well, this is going to look fucking stupid. But it doesn't, like, it does it in such a way that it's got that expression where you totally believe he's like, I think this is going to work, and you just edge of your seat. But yeah, for me, that's his moment, and that's why I like it, because it's focused on that character in his dream. It's great.
Inception was a bit of a launchpad for JGL, and since then he's been in other big films, Looper, The Dark Knight Rises, and he's appeared in Lincoln, Sin City, and The Walk as well. And about working on the film, JGL himself says, Inception is as big as Hollywood movies get, but Chris prioritises the acting above all else. It was as much fun as I've ever had on a set. I felt like a little kid playing pretend.
Lovely. Doesn't show, but amazing.
No.
8 people recognised by the Academy in the cast, and one of them was Ellen Page. She plays Ariadne, the architect who designs the dreams for Cobb's plan. After being recruited by Cobb from the Paris School of Architecture, Ariadne designs all 3 dream levels and saves the day by going into limbo with Cobb and bringing Fisher back to reality. She's a bit of a badass, is Ariadne.
She is.
What do we think of her and Ellen Page playing her?
I think much like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, she does a really good job, considering that like 80% of her role is asking questions and getting stuff explained to her and pointing out to Cobb that he's a bit of a dick sometimes. That's pretty much all she's got to do. But Paige does really, really well. It is a performance where on the paper you think, God, what actress is going to want to do that? You know, there's barely anything there, but she brings so much out of it. I like how they made the character as young as she is, so she's got that level of naivety to her. You know, she does kind of rush into this without really thinking through what the possible consequences for her could be. So you can tell she's just so excited by this concept, and that it links into what she's good at, which is architecture, building mazes. Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, I mean, she's the audience, isn't she? She comes into the film with no knowledge of extraction like us, the audience, and is taught everything we need to know by Cobb and Arthur. Ellen Page was only 22 at the time, but doesn't feel remotely out of her depth in this huge Nolan blockbuster. What I do like that Nolan does with the character is that because she's there to learn for a lot of the film, he makes sure it's Ariadne who comes up with a new plan in Dream Level 3 when they think they've failed. Cobb and Eames have basically given up, and it's Ariadne who says they can still pull it off if they go into limbo. I think that's really important. Otherwise, Ariadne is literally just there to ask questions.
Yeah, it's just the absolute heart of the film, I think, because she cares about what's going on deeper. It's not about what's the depth of the dream levels, it's the depth of the emotion. What's the real driving force behind Cobb? What's the real problem here? What's the real inception? And the real inception is to get through to him, and you need somebody who's fresh, who doesn't really know anything, and who is, you know, adverse to all the bullshit.
Before Page was hired, Nolan had quite a few other big names in mind for Ariadne. Have you heard any of those names?
No, I haven't.
Nope.
So, Evan Rachel Wood, Emily Blunt, Rachel McAdams, Carey Mulligan, and Taylor Swift were all considered.
Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift.
Nah, it's all right.
He did cast Harry Styles, didn't he, in Dunkirk? So
He did. He's got form.
Taylor Swift was in Cats, wasn't she? So let's just move on.
Let's shake that off.
Before Inception, Ellen Page was a rising star. She'd been in quite a few films. The most notable were Hard Candy, which won her lots of praise, and as the lead in Juno, where she was nominated for an Oscar, BAFTA and a Golden Globe.
She won the part of Ariadne when she met Chris Nolan for a coffee that had nothing to do with Inception. Nolan said that she had the perfect combination of freshness and savvy and maturity beyond her years that he wanted for Ariadne. So a week later, asked her to come into his office to read the script, and he offered her the gig, kind of straight away. She said that she had to read the script in a room alone with all the doors closed. Imagine how many questions she had to ask when she's by herself. She's just thinking, I've got no one to ask here, which is perfect.
I thought you were going to say she had to read the script in a room within a room for a second there.
Yeah, she had to solve a maze to get the last page.
I always like how she gets angry at Cobb.
Yeah.
Well, for the maze.
And then she just rips the pad out of his hand. Right, you dick. Get out of this one.
Literally thinking outside the box when she turns a bit of paper over. Yeah, it's great.
It's a bit of a strange name, Ariadne, isn't it? Do you know why the character's called that?
I think it's something to do with Greek mythology, but I don't know exactly.
Yeah, it is. Ariadne, famously in Greek mythology, she was a princess and the daughter of King Minos, and she is the person who helped Theseus escape from the labyrinth and fight the Minotaur. So obviously there's a lot of references to Ariadne building mazes in Inception, so Nolan thought, well, just seems the most logical thing to do to name Ariadne for that reason. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, well, on top of that, the maze that Ariadne draws for Cobb, that third one, where he's like, that's more like it. That maze she draws is actually based on the labyrinth from Greek mythology. So another little nod.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's not based on the one from David Bowie film then. I'd have loved that.
I just read the labyrinth and I assumed the Greek mythology one, but maybe.
Nice to see where your head goes, Matt.
Yeah.
About working on Inception and playing Ariadne, Ellen Page now says, I absolutely adored playing Ariadne and was so excited that Chris had written a role for a young woman who was just full of such intellectual curiosity. Ariadne is so smart and so brave and way, way cooler than me.
Nice.
Lovely words.
Forgers are hard to come by, and Cobb's forger is one of the best. That's Eames, played by Tom Hardy. A suave, eccentric ladies' man. He's the dreamer of level 3 in the hospital and responsible for carrying out Inception when he impersonates Fisher's godfather and plants the idea in Fisher's mind. Outrageous wardrobe for Eames.
Wonderful.
How does Tom Hardy do with him, do you think?
He's fantastic. He's brilliant in every role that he plays, Tom Hardy. I've got a real admiration for the guy, and I think he plays this character so well that he's the one who understands human psyche, human psychology, human emotion. He comes up with all of the plan. He comes up with the emotive way to actually implant this idea. I love it when we're in his dream and they're just about to give up and he's like, I thought I had that there.
Yeah.
It's like he's not acting, but he's acting. I kind of put my finger on it. It's just so loose, but at the same time, it's really precise. He skirts the line between the two things so well. And then my quote from the start, mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. He just turns up with a massive grenade launcher. I think that's just fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
He's superb. Like everybody, he totally shines in this.
Yeah, I love Eames. He's great. What I like about Tom Hardy is that I think he's an actor where you can really see the choices that he's made. His delivery of lines and portrayal of characters is often not what it reads on the page, and he usually injects something a bit unexpected into a role, whether it's intensity or oddness or stoicism. He can do quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Here he plays Eames as this quirky Shakespeare lovey type.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, but it works so well. I think it's pretty off the wall what he does with the character, but he fits in with the rest of the team just seamlessly. And I like Hardy in a lot of things. I think he's really good in Dunkirk. I think he's great in The Revenant. And I think he's great here as well as Eames.
Eames is my favourite character in the film, really easily. I love every minute he's on screen.
Yeah.
That charisma he's got, but it's quite low-key. In a way, he's not showing off. It's not like an egotistical performance. It just comes really naturally to him. He seems on the face for like really cool and really in control, but he's the one who starts to lose it a little bit when plans start to go awry, and he's the one who's like, nope, go and stay here.
Yeah.
Not going any further. So I like that about him. He's not quite as cool as he makes himself out to be. And although I don't particularly want a sequel to Inception, I would definitely watch a spin-off with Eames and Arthur together. Because the two of them together are brilliant.
Sounds like a Woody Allen film, Eames and Arthur.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Make it a sitcom. I would happily watch a sitcom with those two.
I wouldn't. That sounds fucking shocking.
With those two, no, it'd be great. But yeah, I don't know what you think, though, but on the page, do you think Eames is written to be a bit older than Hardy is? There's something about him that I always think he was probably meant to be maybe like Tom Berenger's age, but then Nolan obviously got Hardy in mind and didn't change the character.
Possibly, yeah. But I do know that when Nolan cast DiCaprio, he intentionally cast younger cast members because he didn't want DiCaprio to look too young. So maybe that's where the change came from.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
and another story as well is that Tom Hardy thought he was cast because of his performance in Bronson, but he was actually cast because of his performance in Rock and Roller.
Yeah.
So first day on set, he went to Chris Nolan and he's like, "What did you think of Bronson?" He's like, "I haven't seen it." So I thought I was cast off the back of that. He's like, no, I saw you in Rock and Roller, which is weird because it's not a memorable performance for me.
No.
Well, before Inception, I actually first came across Tom Hardy in Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, of course you did.
Yeah, of course you did.
Where he plays the bad guy, Shinzon.
Oh, Shinzon, yeah.
Yeah. He's basically a clone of Patrick Stewart and he wears a bald cap.
Yeah.
And a bit like Ariadne, Nolan took the name of Eames from somewhere else.
Yeah, he was named after Charles and Ray Eames, I believe. They were a married couple and they were known as furniture designers, architects, and for making avant-garde documentaries.
Avant-garde. I think that fits pretty perfectly with how Hardy portrays him, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Yeah. He's got an arty side to him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
What's your favourite Eames moment in the film?
I think Eames does give the most hilarious moment in the film, and it's when they're talking about the kick for the first time, and Ariadne obviously wanted to know what that is, and Eames just goes, "This, Ariadne, would be a kick," because he's seen Arthur swinging on his chair and he nearly sends him flying. It's hilarious. It's the fact that Eames isn't even looking at him while he's doing it. He's just like staring off the other side of him, so he does it really slyly, the little bastard. And Arthur is furious.
He is.
It's a small moment, and it sums up that kind of bickering relationship that Eames and Arthur have. I love it.
Yeah, I love the intro scene to Eames in the bar Mombasa where he's sitting with Cobb. Hardy's delivery of pretty much every line is great. I like it when Cobb mentions Arthur and Eames is like, "Arthur."
That'll stick in the mud.
It's an example of what I mean, where Hardy often surprises me with his choices, but almost always in a good way.
The bit that really resonated with me is when he's watching Fisher at the end and he's just waiting for him. He's waiting for it to click and he's watching him and he's just like, come on.
Yeah.
It's just that expression on his face where he knows that's all of his work. That's everything he's worked towards and he's just watching it silently from the doorway. And I think when you're on Hardy's face there, you can totally see it and he nails it without pretty much any dialogue whatsoever. It's a fantastic, fantastic bit of acting.
Of all the actors in the film, Tom Hardy's probably the one whose career Inception impacted most positively. After that, he's appeared in other big films, the most notable Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Warrior, Legend, where he plays both Grey Twins, The Revenant, where he was nominated for an Oscar, and as the lead in Mad Max Fury Road and Venom. And he worked with Nolan twice more in Dunkirk and as Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. He's done all right for himself, Hardy, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And rightly so, to be fair. Like, he's fucking massive in anything.
Yeah.
He'll always be Shinzon to me.
Christ almighty. What does he have to do to shake that shit?
About Inception, Tom Hardy said about his time on the set, DiCaprio's there, Nolan's there, prolific people. I'd came from obscurity and was concerned with not letting the team down, really. That's what fed the work. I'm only a very small cog in the wheel. Selling himself a bit short there, I think, Hardy, isn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, but I think it says a lot about him. He doesn't have that ego, does he? Good guy.
Well, DiCaprio was the lead, of course, but I think it's testament to the cast as a whole that the film has an ensemble feel to it as well. Everyone plays their part, and I don't think there's anybody in the cast who feels replaceable.
No, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
The middle.
At this point, we've been through all the setup, the director, the cast, and mountains of exposition, and the middle of Inception is where things really start, and we dive into the dream world. Dream Level 2 when the hotel is coming, but first, makes sense to start with Dream Level 1, I think. So after Saito buys out an entire airline, the team get on the same flight as Fisher, drug him to sleep, and then get started on the plan. Level 1 is Yusuf Stream in rain-drenched LA, and it brings us subconscious security, a runaway train in the middle of a street, and Tom Berenger. As Browning, Fisher's godfather, what do we think of Dream Level 1?
These dream levels, for me, are, again, a massive reference to the whole filmmaking subplot that runs all the way through it. I truly believe that these 3 dream levels are based on 3 of Chris Nolan's favourite films.
Right.
And can you guess what this one would be?
It's always reminded me of Heat.
Heat, I was going to say, yeah.
There you go. So I think this one is very reminiscent of that whole Heat genre. That whole shootout just comes from nowhere. The train comes from nowhere. You're automatically in. And when I was watching it again yesterday, I was thinking, if I was trying to figure out who's going in what car, like if you go in the taxi and then you go in the back, and then I'll pick you up at the corner, and then we'll go and get Fisher. That would take me 6 months just to figure out who's going in what car. It's just, and then there's all the other little bits that you put into it. I mean, all the number theories that go through the film. This is quite prominent in this scene because you've got Saito's safe starts at number 53 and Mal's safe is number 20. That's the numbers that are shown on there.
Yeah.
And on the taxi is the number 2053, which is relating to them 2 safes, but the number on the train is 3502. So that's Mal trying to reverse everything.
And that all comes from the hotel room that Mal jumps from. The number is 3502.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all, there. It's just there to torture Cobb and just, for a fact it's his subconscious trying to bring him back to where he was. But I love the fact that Yusuf's had too much champagne and he needs a piss.
That's
and
great,
it's raining. Like, I love that. That's just excellent.
Yeah.
Another thing I love about this as well is Hardy's transformation into Berenger's character. He's obviously sitting in front of an actor's vanity mirror. It cuts away. It's all Hardy in the mirror. Cuts back, Berenger's in 1 mirror, cuts back to DiCaprio, then he's in 2, cuts back, then he's in 3, and then he turns and shouts. And then Hardy's reflected in the mirror as he shouts. It's just genius. It's so fucking impressive that you watch it in just that level of detail, and it's not confusing. You just think, oh, well, that's fairly simple in its execution.
Yeah.
But the thought process behind all these little bits, and you just keep thinking, right, well, where is this going? It's superb.
Just the imagery of that train smashing through the cars in the middle of the street is fantastic.
Yeah.
In order to do that, they put a train engine under the chassis of a tractor trailer. It's a great shot, that. And the state motto on all the car license plates says the alternate state, which is a nice touch.
Oh, amazing.
Wow.
Just the detail that Westy's went through there and that in this one sequence is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just got that physicality that Nolan works so well with, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The way that train comes through. And what's great about that is that it reminds you how surreal dreams can be. This is the bizarreness that can happen in a dream, so it's not going to happen like a straightforward action sequence. No, there will be a train just smashing through the middle of the road for no reason. And it's also great that this is where the peril really starts to ramp up, because now you get the introduction of the concept of limbo and what that's going to mean for everyone. Because up until now, everything has just been about success or failure. Now there's an actual life or death aspect to it.
Yeah.
And they're all in it much deeper than the thought, which doesn't reflect well on Cobb at this point. So I like how he get that little twist on his character, like he should have told them.
Yeah.
It just shows his desperation as well, and that he's willing to sacrifice everybody. I think that's really important, because he doesn't want to do it either, and it's DiCaprio's performance that you can see he is tortured by it. And then you have that lovely somber moment where he explains about Mal, and he's talking to Ariadne about it. And I love the things he introduces, like there's a train from nowhere. And you just think, all right, explain that later. I bet you can't. And then there's just guys in a massive shootout. And you just think, well, where the fuck's that coming from? And you just kind of get cocky and you go, right, they fuck this film up. They can't explain that. And then they go in and say, oh, Fisher's being trained. And you go, oh, shit, that's believable. To just explain everything. And you just go, oh, yeah, shit, right, okay. And then you're straight back with them again.
Yeah.
What do you think of the big chase through the streets where Yusuf's driving the van?
That sequence, that car chase, it took months to film, and I've got a quote from Dilip Rao, who plays Yusuf, and he says, "We'd shoot it one day, then go off and shoot something else. It was so complex, and there were so many locations and so many different moves I have to do. We filmed it on and off for months."
Wow.
Doesn't feel like it's something that would take months to film, like, does it?
I would assume that coming back to it months later would make it easier to tie everything in with what's happening later in the film and the other dream levels, because it's all got to match up. Maybe that was why. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
From there, the team head into Arthur's dream, a hotel where Fisher's subconscious projection of Browning starts feeding the idea back to him as planned. Dream level 2 brings us Eames impersonating a lovely lady he's used before, and the greatest fight in a hotel corridor with no gravity filmed on a 100-foot-long revolving set ever.
It's my favourite one, yeah.
It's in the top 2.
What do we think about Dream Level 2? Is it all about that corridor?
No, I don't think it is, to be fair. I think there's enough going on in there besides that that's worth talking about it. I think it's at this point that the film has a definite Ocean's 11 vibe. You know, everyone's swanning around a hotel in suits, pulling cons, stealing wallets. It's definitely got that lovely heist element to it. I love that scene. It's the other bit in the film that makes me laugh when Eames goes into the lift with Saito and he's the woman, and like Saito really freaks out. But then he sees it's Eames' reflection.
I love when that comes back as well, as and he sees Berenger and he's like, "Oh, you've changed." He's like, "Oh man,
yeah." Oh,
that's really good. That's really funny.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, I mean, that corridor fight. I mean, come on. When I first saw that, I actually just wanted to laugh just because how audacious it was. And I think it works so well because of where in the film Nolan's placed it. So much of the film so far has been about the levels of dream and what Inception is, what Extraction is. So now I think it's Nolan knows that he's got like an ace up his sleeve. And he's like, right, I've been talking to these people long enough. I'm just going to show them something that works on a visual level and I'm going to blow everyone away. But it's not just there for the sake of it either. It reminds you that on this level, it's been affected by what's happening on level 1. Just in case you'd forgotten about that. Yeah, because they're in free fall. Now they're in free fall down here. Yeah. So it's still amazing.
It really is. I think it's one of the most incredible things I've seen in a film. Yeah. It took 3 weeks and 500 people to shoot it. I love how there's practically no digital effects used. Almost everything we see is in camera. It looks so real because most of it was. But not just that. I mean, the editing is fantastic. I love how the fight gets more and more frantic and tense and the score crescendos. And then the whole thing just comes to a really sudden end with the bang when Arthur fires the gun. Absolutely brilliant. Just mesmerising every time I watch it.
I mean, this is 2 films for me. This is his, like, not the Kubrick. So I think this is The Shining and it's 2001, just mixed together. But I love as well, just in level 1, when you get that really great MacGuffin, which is the number, it's like 528491, which then runs into this one because she leaves it on the napkin. And then it becomes the hotel room, which I think is really clever. It's just a wonderful way to implant that in someone's mind. So every level is a level of Inception. They're planting something in his mind every single step of the way. And I would say The Shining, not just because of the really obvious, it's in a hotel, so hi Westy, you're just going to mention The Shining because you love The Shining.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's great. There's another parallel as well. Well, there's 2. If you notice, when Cobbs is talking to Fisher when he takes him out the bar, where does he go?
The bathroom.
Yeah.
So it's similar when Jack's talking to Grady, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar in shot. There's mirrors on the side. It's got a very similar look. And the other thing I love about this as well, that I don't know if I'm going like really nerd level 1000, but you know how Gordon Levitt's totem is a dice?
Yeah.
And he holds it up the camera and it's loaded so it always lands on a 5.
Right.
So he's tumbling down the corridor, and if you look at the end of the corridor, there's a number 5. It's because they're on level 5.
Is there really? Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fucking amazing, isn't it?
Westy, you're going to make a documentary about all the hidden meanings of Inception.
Yeah.
Room 528.
Yep, room 528. We're already 10% of it will be feasible.
It is brilliantly bonkers, the revolving corridor. So do we know how they did it?
Yeah, but you can explain it because I'll be here all day. I need to simplify it.
Well, firstly, it was all filmed in 2 enormous airship sheds in Bedfordshire. Originally, the revolving set was only going to be 40 feet long, but as the scene became more and more elaborate, they decided to make it 100 feet long. The mechanics of the set was mapped out by Wally Pfister, the DP, Chris Corbould, effects supervisor, and Guy Hendricks Diaz, who was the production designer. The set they built rotated a full 360 degrees, and they could control the direction it rotated and how fast it rotated. Nolan didn't want any digital effects, if possible, so even the lights were real. They had it rigged up with real electricity.
Right.
That sound impressive?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm not done yet. So the corridor on that set was horizontal, of course, but they created a second set that was identical to the first in every way, except the corridor was vertical. So in this set, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and the stuntmen he was fighting were suspended from pulleys about 40 feet in the air to create the look of weightlessness. So the moment where they're fighting and moving up the walls and around the ceiling is all shot on set 1, the one that revolved. And the times where they're weightless, or appear to be weightless, is on set 2, the vertical set. And the fight sequence cuts between shots from both sets, which is why the points of gravity seem to change from 1 second to the next and why it's completely impossible to make any sense of it. I mean, this is just phenomenal in my eyes. Yeah. I think we have to say as well, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an actor, not a stuntman, and he's brilliant in this whole sequence.
Oh, he's amazing. The great thing about Levitt in this is that he trained for like 12 weeks. And he had a stuntman, but you know how many shots a stuntman was used for?
How many?
No.
One.
Really?
Everything else is going level. Yeah, I mean, you can totally tell if you had a stuntman and it would be really hard to cut around it.
Yeah.
You need him to play it because it needs that believability. And I think for him to do that, train for 12 weeks and then nail it as well as he does here, you're still there. You know, it's superb.
I know the JGL said it was the most pain I've ever been in on a movie set. And also, to allow him to keep it tuned with the rhythm of the set as it was revolving around him, he would sing Bach to himself in his head to keep focus.
Of course you would.
Cultured man, JGL, isn't he?
Really cultured, right? He's right into the character here, isn't he?
Well, I mean, it's no surprise that he had to find some way to keep his focus here, because what Nolan was putting him through just on a physical level, I mean, even just thinking about it makes me feel a bit sick, actually. But Nolan said it was like some incredible torture device. We thrashed Joseph for weeks, but in the end we looked at the footage and it looks unlike anything any of us has ever seen before. The rhythm of it is unique, and when you watch it, even if you know how it was done, it confuses your perceptions. It's unsettling in a wonderful way.
Really nice.
Yeah, I know the editor of Inception was called Lee Smith. He had loads of experience going back to the 70s. And when he was sent the footage for this corridor scene, he called Nolan and said, "This is the most incredible footage I've ever been sent."
Amazing.
Blown
stuff.
away by it.
The whole zero gravity thing is another call back to what we were saying about, you know, the visual effects that were used. The practical effect is that Ellen Page's hair was tied up into a bun because they didn't know how her hair was going to react in that zero gravity atmosphere. And the other thing that I really, really love about this is when he's moving Saito and you've got them tiny blood droplets coming out of his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to use visual effects and CGI. That's what you use them
absolutely.
for. Just to show that he's deteriorating. Wonderful.
The zero gravity fight sequence in Inception is covered in a 5-line paragraph in the screenplay, and there's only 30 seconds of screen time, and it doesn't feature the main star of the film. But, wow.
Yeah, wow. All this level, wow. The whole film, wow.
Crew.
Massive productions need a talented crew to deliver, and the crew that worked on Inception was pretty great, so we're going to go into a bit more detail on some of them now. 2 long-time Nolan collaborators, DP Wally Pfister and composer Hans Zimmer, are coming up, but for now, they're waiting for a train as we're starting back with Nolan as the writer of Inception.
Yep, let's do it.
As I mentioned earlier, Nolan first had the idea for Inception as a teenager, and at first thought about making it into a horror, but in the end decided on a science fiction heist movie. It's high concept and famously difficult to keep track of what's happening at times in Inception. So what do you think of the writing in the film?
I think it's a completely original film. I mean, you can see its influences, but I mean, I don't really think you can say, oh, well, that's just exactly the same as this or anything like that. I think this completely stands on its own. I think it's a glimpse inside Chris Nolan's ambition. It is a very personal story from Nolan. It's a very, unique idea. I think he executes it perfectly. I think it's a really solid, really ambitious bit of writing that is complicated, but at the same time very accessible. So yeah, it's a wonderful script.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is brilliant. A heist team that goes into people's dreams to extract secrets. Fantastic. But what Nolan does here that makes him the best at this sort of thing is that he doesn't just think, well, that's a great concept. My work is done. He develops it. So it's not just dreams within dreams. There's loads of great ideas like subconscious security. And I love use of cellar, where people go there every day because they'd rather be in the dream than reality. That's a great idea. On top of that, I love the emotional core of the film, which revolves around Cobb losing his wife and wanting to get back to his children. That brings so much weight that the narrative just needs. Maybe a negative in the writing, I would say, is some of the plotting can be a little contrived. Rules crop up just because Nolan needs them to sometimes. We're told so many rules, I'm half expecting Cobb to say, don't cross the streams. Everything else is in there. But generally, yeah, I think he's done a fantastic job of getting his head around this crazy concept and managing to make it into something that works as a story.
It is a little bit of a mixed bag for me. The good stuff, let's get to the good stuff first. So the depth to which he's thought this concept through. Not just going into dreams, dreams within dreams. And then to think, right, so something happens in level 1, that's going to affect level 2, then that's going to affect level 3. To think all that through, that's just incredibly detailed plot work.
Yeah.
And when you get to the end, and the way he just threads the needle through all those different layers and just pulls it all together, it's just a beautiful bit of plot writing. The negative aspects for me are kind of twofold. I think the character work does feel a little lacking for me. I kind of touched on it a bit when I talked about Ariadne and Arthur, how like 80% of them is just explaining other stuff. And I think that's to their detriment. I don't really feel I know them that much as characters. And the second thing, I just don't find his dialogue very memorable. Trying to find a quote to start this episode was the hardest one I've done, because reading through the script, I was like, that's just a line of exposition. That's just another line of exposition.
And then I see you change it as well.
Yeah, exactly. You asked me to change it. I knew someone else would go for the Eames line, which is obviously the best line in the film. It was, front and centre in the trailer. And I think that's a flaw. Inception is just not a film I think you're ever going to find yourself quoting.
Yeah, I mean, that's valid points on both. I think his dialogue isn't bad, but it's not memorable.
No, it's not bad, no.
There's no like iconic lines hardly ever in his films or anything like that. I agree with that. But I do care about the characters, to be honest. I do care about Cobb getting home, and I do like all the characters. I would love to see all these characters again. I mean, we're never going to. And I'm not sure why, because you're right. I mean, Arthur, we know nothing about him, but I really like him. Ariadne, we know nothing about her, but I really like her. Same with Eames. So I'm not sure where that comes from. Maybe it is just in the performances.
I think it is, yeah. I think it's what they bring to it.
I think he's just a very visual director. He's a very visual filmmaker. So a lot of this is in the visuals. A lot of the emotion, a lot of the impact is there on the screen for you to find. Yeah, you're right. He's not a dialogue writer. He's not Tarantino. But I think if you start delving into backstories here, you're going to lose focus on what the actual film's about, which is about Cobb and, everything about him and everything about Mal. That's what the film's about. That's the nucleus it kind of centres in. Not every film can have that level of character development and depth, because it's not going to be focused on them. It would be a distraction for me. I think that would be too much. And his dialogue is quite forgettable, but his visuals aren't.
Well as the plot, exposition and character backstories and arcs, Nolan still finds time to throw a theme or two in there as well. Regret is a big one, but maybe the most interesting theme that people talk about is that Inception as a film is an allegory for filmmaking itself, and that Nolan reflects that throughout the movie. Westy, I think you see filmmaking as a theme in Inception.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, 100%. And I think every character's got a role, and it's no secret that Cobb looks pretty similar to Nolan, right? Pretty much exactly the same.
Well, he's a bit more handsome, I think, than Nolan.
A little bit, yeah, but, credit where it's due. The hairstyle's there, his outfits are the same, and it's even been said that on the teaser poster, where it's the back shot of Cobb looking down the whole cityscape, that was actually Nolan.
Really?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, that thing about the filmmaking, once you know about it and you can start to identify the different roles, it does start to make sense. So, obviously, Cobb, he's a director, he's the man with the vision, he's got the grand plan. Arthur is the producer, so as the point man, he does all the planning, he does the research, it's his responsibility to pull everything together so Cobb, the director, can achieve his vision. Ariadne, she's the production designer, she creates the maze, she creates the world in which everything takes place. Eames, obviously, we know he's a forger, so he's the actor, because he is impersonating people. Saito, he's the money man, so he's the studio. Everything that gets financed comes through him. And Fisher, he's the audience. This is what everything is being pulled together for his benefit, for his enjoyment.
I also think of Yusuf as like the technician as well. He's like a DP. He's got the technical element to it. And then you've got Arthur as well, going back to the corridor fight. It's just like the producer scrambling through this maze, just trying to pull everyone together, tie the whole crew together. So it's got all of these great elements.
I reckon Joel Silver's probably had a few fights in hotels before when he's been on set.
Not like that, though.
No, not like that. There's also some pretty trippy stuff going on with the character names. We mentioned Ariadne and Eames, but have you heard where the other character names come from?
I have no idea where the names come from.
No.
So Cobb's first name is Dom, and his main objective is to get home. In most Slavic languages, Polish, Russian, Serbian, Croatian, Dom means home.
Right.
Oh, yeah, like domicile.
Domestic, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So Yusuf is the Arabic name for Joseph. In the Bible, Joseph is the person who interprets people's dreams, as in Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't think there'd be reference to that, to be fair.
Should have cast Jason Donovan or Philip Schofield.
Oh, imagine.
Can you imagine?
And Mal comes from a French word, malheur, which means unhappiness.
Another lovely reference is if you take the first letters of the main characters' names, so you've got Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Mal, and Saito, that spells out dreams. And then if you add Peter, Ariadne, and Yusuf, the whole thing makes dreams pay, which is what they do as mind thieves, really. So yeah, and I don't know how much I buy that. Can it be coincidental? Surely that's got to be in there for a reason.
Has to be.
I mean, how much is crammed into this script?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Bursting at the seams.
Yeah, there's a really good reference as well. There's a book by George Lanoff, which is called Don't Think of an Elephant, which is a book about cognitive semantics. So when he says, if I say to you, don't think of an elephant, what are you thinking of? It's a reference to that book, which I think I might get. That sounds really interesting.
Lovely. Have you got plans to start manipulating people's minds, Westy?
I've been doing it for years. You just don't even know. What am I even doing here?
It's all a dream.
It is.
Nolan himself says about writing the film, Inception burned inside me for a long time. The final piece of the puzzle was when I realised when you're dealing with the world of dreams in the psyche, there has to be emotional stakes. Hopefully, I made that work.
Definitely did.
Yep.
Nine years before production on Inception started, Nolan and Wally Pfister worked together for the first time on Memento. Inception was their sixth partnership, so how does Wally Pfister do as DP on Inception, do you think?
I think he's fantastic. I honestly do. I think that since Wally Pfister hasn't been working with Nolan, his films haven't got that real sense of clarity. They feel a little bit loose, a little bit more loose in the way that they're shot, and I don't know whether that's his dedication more to IMAX. Hoyt van Hoytoma has come on as DP now, who's worked on everything since Interstellar. And you look at this point here and you just think, well, this is somebody at the top of the game. His work in this it just looks as good as any film has ever looked. Really, it's superbly done.
Yeah, I think it's classic Nolan Pfister, isn't it? What I really like about Inception is the use of colour. Once we get into the three dream levels, it could be easy for audiences to become lost. So the three levels are coloured and lit to look different from each other.
Yeah.
Level 1 in the van looks quite neutral and muted. Level 2 in the hotel feels different with really warm hues and soft lighting. And level 3 in the hospital is much cooler and almost sterile. Obviously, everything is white. I think the film as a whole looks fantastic and is up there with anything they've done together.
I mean, his work here, it's obviously excellent, isn't it? He's got that ability that Nolan really, really wants in a cinematographer to be very comfortable shooting with physical aspects of film as well as CG, which is what he clearly is. And that's why the two are blended together so perfectly. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I think what helped with that is that there was no second unit on Inception. Everything we see was shot with both Nolan and Pfister present.
All right.
So what's your favourite shot in the film?
It's quite a small one in some ways, but it's that one of the van falling backwards off the bridge in slow motion. I just find it such a hypnotic, fascinating shot.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks great, but like the corridor scene, it's got a place in the narrative as well. It's just that reminder of where the characters actually are, where they've started from in terms of the dream, and so keeps cutting back there. It ties the whole thing together. I just love it.
Yeah, I was going to say a which shot because we're seeing it about 400 times, that van falling off the bridge. To be fair, though, it is a perfect way of giving us a visual countdown clock so we can see exactly how long the team has left. It works really, really well from that point of view.
I love the way the techniques are used as well to reinforce the story. They're not using slow-mo just to be flashy.
Yeah.
But my favourite shot is when the extracting Saito at the start and Cobb is being pushed and he has the kick and he's in the bath. But it's when he's actually in the dream. It's that shot from behind him and all the water starts coming in.
Yeah.
And he's silhouetted against that water. I remember watching this IMAX, first time I'd seen it. That shot came on and I just went, that's filmmaking. That's amazing. That's so exciting in literally, 4 or 5 seconds. Beautifully done.
It is a great shot. So Inception came out 1 year after Avatar, which at the time was the highest grossing film ever made. Avatar was a 3D film, and because of this, Warner Brothers asked Nolan to make Inception in 3D. Nolan refused and said, we'll be too restricted by the technology and it will distract from the storytelling.
Yeah.
Would you have liked to have seen Inception in 3D?
There's only like 2 bits that would have worked, wouldn't there? There's the cafe explosions. That would have been great. And then the whole city folding in. If that city was looking like it was folding in on you, that would have been great.
Terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
You know, you can make the argument that you could create more of a surreal atmosphere in 3D to reflect the dreamscapes that they're in, but it wouldn't fit. Yeah, cannot imagine this serving the story at all well.
The only film that warrants 3D that really works is Space Hunter Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. And that's fantastic because it doesn't even have a story, doesn't matter.
For his work on Inception, Wally Pfister won an Oscar, his first. And about Inception, he now says, Chris wanted a naturalistic look in the photography to reinforce the notion that dreams can feel incredibly real when we're in them. I kept things simple and not overlit and tried to find the beauty in natural light. Job done, I think.
Yep.
Oh, definitely.
One long-term Nolan collaborator to another, Hans Zimmer had previously scored Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, so this was their third partnership as director and composer. Johnny Marr plays guitar on the score as well.
Yeah, he does. Better than anything he's done for the Smiths.
I don't know about that.
I fucking do.
So what do we think of Zimmer's music in Inception?
I think it's very Hans Zimmer, isn't it? I mean, it's just ultimately and immediately recognisable. It's big. It sounds as big as it looks. It's just huge. The whole score is just so sweeping and so dramatic. I went and did the Big Shop yesterday and I had this soundtrack on. Asda had never been so interesting. I was walking around just like, I thought everything was me subconscious and I was just like, Jesus, this is huge. It's superb. My favourite Zimmer score.
I can't recall another score that just seems so immediately iconic as this one. Just after this, it just seemed like it was everywhere, almost to the point now where it almost feels like it's a parody of itself because it's been ripped off so many times. But it is incredible. It's massive. That's the word I've got to give it, because it just feels like he's restrained it in terms of like orchestration. I don't think there's like loads of instruments in there, but the instruments that he is using, he's just amped them up, and it always feels like it's a wave kind of rolling over you, the music in this.
It's like IMAX for your ears, isn't it? EMAX.
EMAX.
EMAX doesn't sound as good. Get the cotton buds.
There's a piece of music not composed by Hans Zimmer which crops up where Édith Piaf's Je Ne Regrette Rien is used by the team to initiate a kick when they want to wake up or move up dream layers. We hear it most of the way through the film. A slightly unexpected choice, maybe?
Non, rien de rien.
And that's the original version.
It's just one of those decisions where you've just got to sit back and applaud him for it, because where did that concept come from? How did they even think of that? And it's kind of like what I said at the beginning about the technology that they use. I love how in this high concept sci-fi futuristic thriller they use a song from the 1930s as the countdown. Like, just
Matt's bowled over by this.
It's one of these things. It just baffles me in a good way. That didn't think, oh, we'll do what the Matrix did. Get the Dust Brothers in now, get like a techno track.
Thank God for that. Bloody hell.
Yeah, thank God for that, yeah. But it's something really slow and mournful. It's brilliant.
I think it's a great choice. I like how the song taps into the themes of the movie, memories, regret, and moving on from regret. And there's a classic Nolan touch in there as well, where Je Ne Regrette Rien is 2 minutes 28 seconds long, and Inception is 2 hours 28 minutes long. So Nolan edited the film so the length reflected the song.
That's ridiculous.
I love everything about that choice. I think this would have been there when he was writing the script, to be honest. It is so reflective of the themes. I don't think this was an afterthought. I think that was baked in. And I did read somewhere that he was thinking about changing it when he cast Marianne Coulter, because she did play Édith Piaf and she sang this song as part of that role, and he thought it would be too much. But I think it's worked the other way. I think if you look at Marianne Coulter, that is the song that you hear when you see her, for it to remind Dom of her and to use it as the kick. And I think he's chose that song because it reminds him of Mal, to be honest.
Yeah, it was actually Zimmer who convinced Nolan to keep it after he thought about getting rid of it because he had doubts about how it might fit. And did you know that the score that Zimmer wrote basically begs, borrows and steals from Je Ne Regrette Rien?
Yeah.
So knowing that Nolan was using that song and knowing that time moves at different speeds depending on which dream level you're in, Zimmer based various pieces of music in Inception on how Je Ne Regrette Rien sounds played at slower speeds.
Yeah, you hear it all the way through the film, don't you? That's where them bongs come from.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone that hasn't, we've got you covered. So this is Je Ne Regrette Rien slowed down alongside Zimmer's Inception score. So have a listen to this. side by side.
It's just so good. I remember, Matt, you texted us about that because we were talking about it, we were being to see it, and you were just like, did you know this? And I was like, shit. You're like, that just makes this like 10 times better. I was like, oh, how much more we're going to find out about this? We're still learning about it. It's just so good.
And we can't talk about the score to Inception without mentioning Time, which is one of the pieces Zimmer wrote. It's used throughout the film, but most powerfully at the end when the team wake up on the plane with the mission accomplished and in the final scene of the movie. So what do you think of Time as a piece of music in the film?
I think it's one of my favourite pieces of soundtrack in recent years, to be honest. It's superb. It's so big. I love that guitar part. It just adds to it. Zimmer's written this many times. This composition, this chord progression, this sound, the strings, everything. I mean, if you watch 12 Years a Slave, when Solomon comes back at the end, there's a track called Solomon, which is pretty much Time.
Really?
Okay.
Without the guitar part, yeah.
Right.
But this feels like he's been trying to get this to sit over a film and to really, really work, and it does here. This is just perfect. From the minute they wake up on that plane, and it builds, and you see them all kind of looking at each other, and it just plays over the final sequence. It's just wonderful. Probably going to be my funeral song, to be honest. I'll get it in there. It's straight in there as the curtains are shutting on my coffin. It's just do 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 do, and I'll come back. But before that, it's the Braveheart soundtrack in full.
Okay, in full.
Then it ends with Time. Oh yeah, you'll be there a while.
After Inception, Zimmer worked with Nolan again on The Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. And for composing the Inception score, he was nominated for an Oscar. Do you know who won that year?
Whoever did the King's Speech.
No, it wasn't the King's Speech. It was Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
Social Network.
Social Network shit, yeah.
That is a great score, The Social Network.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
To finish with, Hans Zimmer, the great German himself, says about Inception, I never told Chris what part of the film I had written a piece for. He used them where he thought best, and it all synced up with what I'd written, which was gratifying.
Oh, nice.
Inception is a rock and roll score.
Right. Should have got Jimmy Page on guitar then.
Oh,
Kashmir. Da, 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 da. Slow that down.
Making movies is a collaborative, creative process, and Nolan understands that as well as anyone. He always surrounds himself with some of the best names out there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The end.
Swinging back and forth, the end of Inception, roller coasters as the team's plan falls apart, comes back together, then falls apart again. We're heading to the crazy world of limbo and discussing the most famous ambiguous ending of the century. But up first, it's Dream Level 3, the Snow Hospital.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
After telling Fisher they're going into Browning's subconscious, the team head into Eames' dream to explore Fisher's subconscious. In Dream Level 3, we have James Bond-inspired snow hospitals and ski chases, gunfights, and the team complete the mission by performing Inception on Fisher. Dream Level 3 then, do we still know what's going on?
Yeah, just about. I think, yes, by this point, we're obviously well into the dream levels. For me, it gets off to a great start just through the setting. I've always got like a soft spot for anything that's set in like a mountainous, wintry, snowy landscape, because I think it already looks really cinematic. You mentioned the Bond influence. I think this section is why people always want Nolan to make a Bond film, because this is his basically mini Bond film he's remaking on Her Majesty's Secret Service here.
Yeah.
That's his favourite Bond film, I think.
Yeah, and the third in the influences of the levels. That's what I was going to say, is that this one's on Her Majesty's Secret Service, definitely.
The only thing I would like a little bit more of, just some kind of surreal aspect like you get the train in Level 1. I think there is room just for something, doesn't have to be massive, just some kind of peril that comes out of nowhere, because it's just getting a little bit straightforward here for my liking. It, but apart from that, it's really great.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think it would be nice to have something surreal happen at this level, which we don't really have, like the revolving corridor or the train smashing through the cars. But I think it looks great, going from the tight corridors in Level 2 to the huge mountains and wide open spaces in Level 3. And that hospital they built is incredible. They built that hospital as a real set on a mountainside in Alberta in Canada, and also as a 20-foot scale model. And the moment the hospital is destroyed, they blew up the set. But Nolan wasn't happy with how it looked. So they blew up the miniature, and Nolan wasn't happy with how it looked. So they built an entirely new 20-foot model just so they could blow it up.
Harry Kubrick.
And also the cross-cutting, I think, in the climax between the three dream levels is masterfully done. It's a bit of a Nolan trademark, cross-cutting between plot threads in the final act. And this is one of the best examples, I think. The urgency levels between each thread match up perfectly and all ramps up together. It's really, really well done, really well plotted.
Yeah, it's a really impressive final level, isn't it? All these snow shootouts are all the same, though, aren't they, really? You know, you've got the snow bikes, you've got the ropes going across the trees, people are getting taken off, there's a van full of them jumping out, it's like Die Hard 2, and then it's like all these different kind of action films just smashed together, but it's just a celebration of them. You don't really feel like he's ripping anything off. And there's that picture as well, and did you know that was actually Cillian Murphy posing in that picture with a tash on?
Oh, is it really?
No.
Yeah, to play the younger Postlethwaite.
Oh, right.
Oh, great.
So that's really nice. But then as it comes up, the layers, it's so rewarding when you see everybody falling at the ground, waking up, going in the lift, waking up again, and they've thought everything through, and you just think, oh, this is just so fucking clever. Everything, emotional impact, action, it's fantastic. One of my favourite endings to any film, really. It
does tie everything together at the end because there's so many threads that we need to get pulled into one place, and he does it so well. Absolutely fantastic. Also, when Yusuf drives the van off the bridge in level 1, there's an avalanche in level 3, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a real avalanche. They detonated explosives on the mountaintop, which caused the avalanche.
Okay.
Wiped out an entire town.
Shut up, man.
No, didn't.
Fucking hell. I was like, I'm sure I would have heard about that.
But it is a real avalanche that they did cause intentionally. Takes no prisoners, does Nolan, when it comes to his movies.
But that does look impressive, that avalanche. The spectacle of it, it's massive. You can tell it's real.
Yeah.
It's superb.
After Marl appears from Cobb's subconscious and kills Fisher, Cobb and Ariadne follow him into limbo for the climax of the film. The ending of Inception sees Cobb rid himself of Marl, rescue Saito from limbo, and return home to his children. Or does he?
Here we go.
Should we talk about the sequences in limbo, first of all?
I like it. I think it's great, the fact that it's all just decaying, it's deteriorating. His subconscious isn't as strong as it used to be. Everything around him's falling apart, but he still doesn't really acknowledge that, you know. And then when he gets there, again, you know, it's one of my favourite sequences in the whole film, that conversation between them when you finally realise that we've seen one Inception and it's worked, but this is the real one. I really get the emotion in this scene. It really fucking got to me when I watched it the other day. I was like, this is just so true. Anyone else would have just ended it with them kicks coming through.
Yeah.
And then waking them up on the plane and just be like, oh, that's the end of the film. That would be good enough for any other filmmaker out there, I think. But Nolan takes it, that extra element. Love it.
Yeah, that final conversation between Cobb and Marl is pretty great. And it's got loads of power. I love it when they first get into limbo, and you sort of mentioned it there, Westy, when the buildings are all crumbling into the sea. That looks just so great. I mean, that's all CGI, and that's, to me, how you use CGI, because it looks incredible still to this day.
And he now sees Mal as that version that is hard to move away from. And it just says, you're not good enough. I'm sorry, I'm not good enough to remember you with all of your complexities and all of your flaws. It's just so fucking beautiful, man.
DiCaprio's delivery of that line is just sensational.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I love how it's all about Cobb and Mal. You don't need any other character in there. Everyone else's storyline is done. So it completely suits the narrative at this point that Limbo is completely devoid of anyone else, because that's what it's been coming down to.
Right then. Here we are. Should we talk about that final shot?
Yes, please.
So, Inception has one of the most famous ambiguous endings in films. Cobb returns to America and is reunited with his children. The final shot in the film slowly pans into Cobb's spinning top and cuts to black before we see if it falls or not. Nolan said about it, I put that cut there at the end, imposing an ambiguity from outside the film. That always felt the right ending to me. I mean, it's a fantastic way to end the film. But the big question, and one our patron Matt Lum has asked, is Cobb back in reality, or is he still dreaming? Matt, what's your interpretation?
I think, as well as what Nolan has actually gone on record to say, I think he's having a little bit of a laugh, and I think he's just seen an opportunity just to tweak the audience right at the end to make sure that everybody is going to go out and go, but what did that mean? What did that mean?
Which everyone does.
Which everyone does, yeah.
I'm of the opinion that everything happens exactly as we've seen it happen. I don't think there's enough of a strong indication that he is still in a dream. I think He's been honest with us. He's been straight down the line. He hasn't been deceitful in the way he's presented defence. I think he's in reality at the end.
I think there's no shot ever that is so simple but being talked about as much as this one. Because Nolan tells the story well and DiCaprio plays it so well. Cobb being reunited with his kids already has power. So to then pan to the top and say, or is it? It's just genius, absolute genius. But I've got another quote from Nolan on this where he said, I've been asked the question more times than I've ever been asked any other question about any other film. What's funny to me is that people really do expect me to answer it. So he's never going to tell us, and I hope he never does.
No.
My interpretation is the same as Matt. Cobb isn't dreaming. He's back in the real world. And to be honest, I don't think that for any reason other than it's what I want to believe. I like Cobb. The emotion DiCaprio portrays in this scene when Cobb sees his kids with hardly any words is incredible. And I want Cobb to have a happy ending. So for me, he's back home, basically because I want him to be. And Westy?
Yeah, you're smirking, thinking I'm going to come up with something ridiculous. Well, to me, this is all about the assassination of JFK. No, I believe he's in reality. You're missing the point if you're focusing on that spinning top, because he's not anymore. He's in the reality that he has chosen. He is in his happy reality. So whether that's a dream or not, it really doesn't matter. It's the fact that he's exorcised the demons. And I think everyone misses the glaring point that it's not even his totem. That's Mal's totem. And there's a lot of talk, and what I really believe in is that his actual totem is his wedding ring.
Right.
He would know the weight, he would know the size. And every time he's in a dream sequence, he is wearing that wedding ring. And you see when he hands his passport over at the end, there's no ring on there. When Michael Caine said, he was interviewed, and he said that Chris Nolan told him if he was in a scene, it was reality. If he wasn't in a scene, it was a dream. And the final thing I'll say that reinforces it, in my opinion, is that one of the major themes is how did you get here? It's how he convinces Ariadne she's in a dream. It's how he convinces Fisher he's in a dream when he's in the hotel room. How did you get here? You always land it in the middle. We see them land the plane, go through customs, arrive at home. You know exactly how he got there.
Yeah.
We saw him start, middle and end. This is the end. He's in reality. There's nothing more to talk about. The top fell, of course it did. It wobbles a bit at the end. Anyone's got anything else to say, then they can stick it on Twitter, they can give us a shout. But he's in reality. That's it. We've solved the problem. End of story.
He will ignore it though. He'll get no reply. Maybe some insults.
You can invoice us for the mic because I'm going to drop it.
No, I'm convinced you've convinced me. It is quite interesting in the end, though, because, like Nolan says, and what you said there, Westy, is that the significance of the thing isn't about whether he's dreaming or whether he's in reality. It's about the fact that he's ignoring his spinning top. Mm-hmm. So wherever he is, he's accepted that as reality. And that raises all sorts of other questions, like, if he is in a dream and he's accepted it as reality, does that matter?
No, I don't think it does. I think it matters, is he happy? Is he content as a person? Because what is reality?
Exactly.
Your reality is what you choose it to be. Because nothing's really a reality. Everything's a construct of something. It's what you choose. But what did throw a spanner in the works for me is that people have argued that he's back in limbo, that he never actually got out of limbo.
Right.
And the point that reinforces that is that I put the captions on so I can see the subtitles, because I need to know what the kids are saying at the end, because it sounds so exciting. So do you know what they say, what your son says to him?
No,
it's hard to make out, isn't it?
Yeah, and he says to them, what you guys been doing? And his son turns around and says, we're building a house on a cliff. That is limbo.
Yes, like those houses on the cliff, isn't it?
So you could arguably say he's still in limbo, and that's always
there's far too much going on here.
Man. Can I change my answer, please?
That's a spanner in the works, so I've kind of just given you both answers, so just choose what you want. It really threw a spanner in the works for me last night. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, what did I do that for? I've been sitting on this where Matt was going, his dialogue's not memorable. It fucking is now.
Yeah, that's pretty great, to be fair. There's something else Nolan does after the final shot, which is great. So as the end credits roll, the title, Inception, appears 3 times. Mm-hmm. This represents moving up the 3 dream levels, and as the credits finish, he plays Ne Regrette Rien again, which is a signal that the audience is waking up from the dream. That is the film.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So there you have it. The team perform Inception, and Cobb returns home to his children, or doesn't, and is back in reality, or isn't. We've answered that pretty conclusively, I think.
How's the film even finished?
I mean, to quote Morgan Freeman in Seven, I think we've brought this to as close of a conclusion as humanly possible. Much like him. But there is something, I've been sitting on this all the way through it. It's one final thing that I've researched it, and I've definitely got the answer.
Go on.
Go on then.
It's...
Reception and awards.
Production companies and studios only tend to spend big on movies nowadays when they're part of an existing IP, a sequel, a reboot, or a novel or comic book adaptation. Unless, of course, you're Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Sue Kroll was the president for Warner Brothers' worldwide marketing team and said about the release of Inception, "We didn't have the brand equity that usually drives a big summer opening, but we had a great cast and a fresh idea from a filmmaker with a track record of making incredible movies. Christopher Nolan was a brand. If you can't make those elements work, it's a sad day." He is at that level, isn't he? His name is like a brand. Marketers can sell.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think any other director could have got people out of the fear of, you know, the virus that's flying around and lockdown and going back into a cinema to watch Tenet. I mean, we couldn't even get together to discuss anything to do with this, but he brings a film out and it's like, yeah, let's get out there. You know, everyone's terrified to go to the shops, but like, Tenet's out, right? Fuck that.
I'll take me chances.
Yeah, too right.
So a huge $100 million marketing campaign was put in place, and after the initial trailer for Inception in 2009, the movie was everywhere. Do you remember that at the time?
I remember the trailer very, very vividly. I remember seeing that like on the big screen. I remember thinking, this looks like something I've never really seen before. I don't understand what this could possibly be about. It's a lesson on how you do a trailer, really. It's fucking blueprint. It's amazing.
Well, with that trailer, Hans Zimmer hadn't yet written the score, so they had some original music composed just for the trailer, which is pretty unusual. Yeah. That music is called Mind Heist and was written by a composer called Zach Hemsey. It went down so well that it went viral, and thousands of mashups appeared online where people had laid that score over other classic trailers. So you can see what I mean. There's an example from a film you might know here. So listen, you smell something? Serious Ghostbusters there. What do you think of that?
I think it's great. It makes it look better than Ghostbusters 2, which it isn't. Terrifying when you see the Marshmallow Man at the end there stomping along. Yeah. Fucking hell.
Imagine that was the actual trailer and you went to see it and it was Ghostbusters. Loads of laughs.
Yeah. You'd be furious.
You'd be relieved.
So in terms of how Inception performed, the production budget for the film was $160 million. Nolan brought it in both under budget and within schedule, and the film grossed $826 million worldwide, making it the fourth highest grossing movie of 2010. Do you know what was highest that year?
Was Toy Story 3 out there?
It was Toy Story 3, yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Took just over $1 billion. Critically, Inception performed well too. Roger Ebert gave the film 4 stars out of 4 and said, "The movie is all about process, about fighting our way through enveloping sheets of reality and dream. It is a breathtaking juggling act. Few directors will attempt to recycle Inception because when Nolan left the labyrinth, he threw away the map."
Yeah. Amazing.
That is nice.
Praise from Ebert. Lovely. About time.
Mark Kermode named Inception as the best movie of 2010 and said, "Inception is proof that people are not stupid, that cinema is not trash, and that it's possible for blockbusters and art to be the same thing."
Yeah.
Lovely that from MK.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah.
Not everybody was a fan, and Rex Reed of the New York Observer said, "Inception is pretty much what we've come to expect from summer movies in general, and Christopher Nolan movies in particular. It doesn't seem like much of an accomplishment to me."
Wow, really?
Well, what does he want?
I mean, if you don't like the film, that's fine, but if you're a film critic and you can't even recognise how this film achieves some impressive things, then what are you doing?
Yeah, you're in the wrong
I'd
job.
love to know what his top 3 is. Christ.
On Rotten Tomatoes, Inception has 87%, and its summary says, "Smart, innovative and thrilling, Inception is that rare summer blockbuster that succeeds viscerally as well as intellectually."
Yeah.
And on IMDb, Inception has an enormous 8.8 out of 10, which makes it, according to IMDb, the 9th greatest movie ever made.
Yep, it's up there.
Really? That high?
I would have said so, yeah.
Wow.
At the Oscars, Inception won 4, Best Cinematography for Wally Pfister, Best Sound Editing for Richard King, Best Sound Mixing for Laura Hirschberg, Gary A. Rizzo and Ed Novick, and Best Visual Effects for Chris Corbould, Paul Franklin, Andrew Lockley and Peter Bebb. And it was nominated for 4, which were Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, Best Art Direction, and Best Original Score. Mm-hmm. Is that all fair, how it did at the Oscars?
I don't think anyone was ready for it, to be honest. I think if this came out now, it would just be like, Jesus Christ, it would get everything.
It baffles me that, Nolan doesn't get a director nomination for this.
I know, yeah.
What he's done, how is that not in that select group?
It's an original story. It's pretty much about filmmaking. And for the Academy not to recognise that or see it is a joke, really.
Yeah, I think blockbusters and science fiction have been overlooked for years and decades, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, of course they have, yeah.
So Inception was fantastically well received at the time of its release, a huge smash hit, critical and public acclaim almost across the board, and performing pretty well at the award ceremonies.
Good. So it should have.
Not bad.
Sequels and influence.
After the release and success of Inception, there was a spurt of high-concept science fiction movies that played around with time. Looper, Source Code, and The Edge of Tomorrow were the most acclaimed. And Marvel's Doctor Strange shamelessly ripped off the cityscape twisting moment from Inception.
Yeah, it does.
That was pretty short-lived though, and Inception rip-offs faded pretty quickly, and that's basically because studios won't give filmmakers $160 million to make an original idea unless you're Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Do you think studios are right to do that? Is there just not an audience for original ideas anymore?
No, I think there absolutely is. Look at the amount of money that Inception made, and the conversation doesn't end there. Think of last year, Knives Out, completely original film. Mm-hmm. That made loads of money, was hugely well received by critics. So much so there's going to be a sequel. Look how excited we get when there's going to be a new Tarantino film. Look at Edgar Wright, Paul Thomas Anderson. It's always a huge event, so I think there's absolutely the audience out there for them. To have something out there that is original, I think people absolutely want to have that experience. I just think studios are probably scared of throwing that much money at a director, because I think they will take the position, probably wrongly, that having an IP to fall back on makes it more safe. I don't think that's necessarily true. But also the thing is, these original ideas are pretty rare. Not everyone is Nolan, Rian Johnson, Tarantino. Look at those guys and look how long it takes them in between to make films, because it takes them that long to get the idea and to follow that idea through. So, yeah, absolutely there's an audience out there, but it takes a lot of talent to get something that's worthy of that audience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors, isn't there? I think the whole industry's changed in responses to everything. I don't think cinema is as popular as it used to be. I think ticket prices have been a real problem for people. But the other factor is this isn't Chris Nolan's first film, and he couldn't have made this after The Prestige. You had to do The Dark Knight, basically, and then people went, oh, holy shit, well, yeah, you can do it, there's some money. It's the same in any industry, in any profession. Nobody's just going to give you a ton of money for your original idea. They don't know if you can deliver it. What springs to mind when you were listening to directors there, Matt, is Jordan Peele. If you've got a really good idea, like Get Out was huge, but it was small. Yeah. It depends on how big you want to make something, and how big you want to make something is dependent on A, the story and the idea, and if it warrants it, and B, if you can pull it off.
Yeah, I think not only is there an audience for new ideas, I think there's a bit of a clamouring from audiences for new ideas. I think Avatar was proof of that. When Avatar came out in 2009, highest grossing film ever, because it was totally new, something we hadn't seen before. And the 3D aspect, everyone was talking about how it looks great in 3D. And audiences just flocked to see it and kept going to see it and made it the highest grossing film ever. But imagine nowadays, no way is George Lucas getting Star Wars made nowadays. Absolutely no chance.
No.
Do you not think?
Studios just won't pay for original ideas. It's got to be a sequel or a comic book adaptation or something like that. So aside from Christopher Nolan, just no one's getting them made. And he's only getting them made because he did a comic book. First of all, a comic book film.
Yeah.
Inception's biggest influence, though, might be this. That foghorn effect cropped up everywhere for a few years. Transformers, Independence Day resurgence, Prometheus, Pacific Rim, and loads more blockbusters all have foghorn-based scores. Is that a good thing? Do you think?
No.
Is that the official title? A foghorn-based score?
That's what I've called it.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. We live next to the coast. I can hear the foghorn now and again, and I'm just thinking, Jesus Christ, am I going to wake up? It's too soon. Yeah, it's overused, and it's turned into a gimmick, and I think Chris Nolan's used it because it's a slowed-down version of the Edith Piaf song, and it serves the story. If you put it in Transformers, it doesn't make any sense, and it just makes us hate Michael Bay even more. So it's got its time, it's got its place, but I just feel like it's been lifted, and whenever you hear it somewhere else, I mean, even the new Rambo had it in certain bits. It's just like, what the fuck? What they've done is just taken that one element and try to use that to elevate their shit, which doesn't work.
Well, Hans Zimmer himself said about people copying that score, "Oh, it's horrible." That music became the blueprint for all action movies. If you get too many imitations, even I get confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's dead on.
No sequels to Inception, of course, though Nolan crams in enough ideas, rules and plot points to fill a cinematic universe. I doubt we'll ever get a sequel, but that does lead us into a question from one of our patrons on Patreon, Just Joe. Mm-hmm. Hello, Joe.
Hello,
Hello.
Joe.
So Joe asks, what sort of film would you like to see Christopher Nolan make next?
So it would obviously have to be something that plays to his strengths, and I think his strengths are his ability to ground a film in a concept, but I would want him to do something that he hasn't done before, so making like a spy thriller or a Bond film doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. I think what would be really interesting if he could do would be to do something like Zodiac or JFK, something based in the real world, a real life event. I suppose like what he did a bit with Dunkirk, where he said, you know, I'm going to make a war film, but I'm going to make a war film like you've never seen before because of the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So I would like him to take something more specific than that, though, and then see how he would do it in his usual style. I think that could be really, really interesting.
Great. For me, Nolan's thing is high concept, smart, innovative science fiction. That's what I think he does best. And that's all I really want from him, to be honest, because there's nobody else doing it. He's done his superhero movies, he's done Dreams, he's done time travel now with Tenet, but there's plenty of science fiction subgenres left. Post-apocalypse, artificial intelligence, dystopian future, they would all be great. I would love to see Nolan's take on an alien invasion movie. I can't imagine him ever doing one, but Nolan taking that old classic idea and spinning it into something new as he does, I would definitely go for that.
Yeah, you just want to see him do Star Trek, that's all. I've got two answers, really. One of them's really pretentious.
Obviously.
Kind of what I'd like to see. Touche. I'd like to see him do a Western.
Oh.
Like a really big, epic, sweeping IMAX Western that's just got like really complex themes in it. I'd like to see him explore his emotional stabs a little bit more. I'd like to see characterization a little bit more. I'd like to see an advance in dialogue, and I think this genre's almost dead and buried. I'd like to see him bring something back, and I think he could make a Western in the style of like Kubrick would have made a Western. I think it's one of my favourite genres. What if John Ford had an IMAX camera? It'd be something else, and I think Scorsese's moving there, and I think, you know, Killers of the Flower Moon's going to be one of them films that might just kick up this genre again, and I think Nolan's take on something like that would be really, really interesting. I'd love to see him like sellotape an IMAX camera to a horse. It would look superb. Just have that type of grandeur. It would be amazing. But my other answer is, I don't want to predict what Chris Nolan can do because I don't understand what he can do. And I really, really want him to do a Chris Nolan film. And that's my pretentious answer. Because Chris Nolan films are experiences. It is a Chris Nolan film, and it always will be. And I think I'd just like to see as many Chris Nolan films as I possibly can without him running out of really strong ideas.
I think combine my answer and your answer there, Westy, we could have Cowboys and Aliens too.
Oh, just remake that because it was shit.
Since Inception was released, nothing like it has came out of Hollywood in terms of combining originality and scale. And unfortunately, with the way the studio system is at the minute, that looks like it's not going to change anytime soon. So, Chris, if you're listening, it's all on you.
Yeah. Sorry, mate.
All the right movies ranking.
You've made it to the end of this podcast within a podcast. we know everybody's in limbo, waiting to find out where Inception will sit in the All the Right Movies leaderboard. So, Matt, do you want to start us off? What are you rating Inception?
So this film I find endlessly fascinating. It's bold, its ambition is sky high, and it's completely suited to the talents that Nolan has as a filmmaker. And it's infiltrated popular culture to the extent that before it came out, some people were genuinely convinced that Tenet was like a stealth sequel to Inception that he'd made on the sly. That's how much Inception has got under people's skins. There are sequences within this film that are absolutely staggering, both on a visual sense and on a narrative sense and a thematic sense. And the ability he has to pull that all together is incredible. Loads of good performances in there, but I do still have issues with some of the writing. I've got to deduct a point for that, so it gets a 9.
Shut up, man, Matt. For fuck's sake.
I don't think Inception is Nolan's best film. I think that's The Prestige. But Inception is my favourite Nolan film. Not just that, it's probably my favourite film of the 21st century.
Amazing. I
agree entirely with that Mark Kermode quote I read out earlier.
Yeah.
Blockbusters can be artistic, and Nolan proves that, and is out there on his own doing it. I think he's fantastic. I love the concept here, and the amount of ideas Nolan introduces is just outrageous. I love the narrative and the personal drama, the heart of everything. The cast are all brilliant. Hans Zimmer and Wally Pfister's work is among their best, I think. It's not perfect, and as I mentioned, some of the writing and plotting gets a little bit convoluted sometimes. And for that reason, I would say it's a 9.5. But that ending, that final shot, is magnificent, and that makes up for it. So it's a 10 from me.
Westy nearly walking off there.
I saw Westy's face there and thought I better change your mind, yeah? And Westy?
A 7 out of 10. No, this made a real impact on me when I saw it in IMAX. And I saw it in the morning, and then I had to go and see it again in the afternoon. It was just an eye-opener for me personally. It's a really personal film. It's one that I find quite comforting to watch. I love how you kind of taken through it. It's endlessly entertaining. Like you said, the characters in it are all relatable. The performances in it are all outstanding. The direction's just so confident. It just begs to be appreciated, I guess. I think this is just why I love cinema. It's just filmmaking. Yeah. It doesn't disappoint on any level. There's not one department working on this film who brought the B game. Everything is top notch. Every single thing is just the best it can possibly be at the time that it was made. It was a real inspiration for me to try and do this stuff, to pick up a camera and try and make things and edit them together and make people feel something, you know. So that was 10 years ago, and I've tried to do it ever since. It was one of the first films that I saw that just made us want to try and do something. It inspired us enough to be creative and to push that, and to know that I could maybe one day make something that is as good as this is. So in my eyes, all day it's a 10.
Fantastic. As always, we asked our Twitter followers to vote. Some of their comments. Rav Daliwell at Ravsturd said, for movie fans, Inception is like a dream within a dream within a dream come true.
Nice.
It's that classic Nolan phenomenon of being truly rewarding on a second watch. 9. Rob Cruess said, while I was troubled with the concept of how someone ended the dream, I assume it's naive. Once you get past that, the rest was just pure genius. An absolutely original storyline, fantastic acting, Zimmer's score, Pfister cinematography. It was a marvel to watch. A solid 9.5. Rob raises quite an interesting point. Nolan never actually tells us how they get into the dreams.
No.
Does that bother you?
Nope.
Nope, not the slightest.
It definitely is, because Saito, when he's on the train, checks his wrist and he sees that he's got the puncture marks.
It's a dream machine, isn't it?
Dream machine, yeah.
King Woody at King Woody 45 said, stunning set pieces, incredible special effects, and a great cast, all held together with a plot that is just plain silly, poor-faced nonsense.
Wow.
6.
Whoa.
Started well, that one.
Wow. Didn't it?
A bit.
He kind of had us in the first half there.
A review within a review there. I mean, for people that don't like Inception, words like poor-faced or pretentious do seem to crop up. I think probably because it takes itself so seriously.
Yeah.
PI doesn't like it either, and he said, it has over-the-top visuals and plot, a dream inside of a dream inside of another dream, Clearly, there's too much cheese being consumed before bed.
It's just pissed off Hackman's not in it.
And our Twitter followers ranked the film as 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's low.
Which gives Inception a total score of 37.5 out of 40. You can check our site to see where it is in the leaderboard. So that's everything on Inception. Hopefully we've not turned everyone's brains to scrambled egg. Next time, it's another 21st century classic. Matt, Luke and P.I. are going all in on the Coen brothers' Oscar-busting No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, nice.
To get your All the Right Movies fill between now and then, you can visit our Patreon page for bonus podcast episodes and to access our archive. That's our patreon.com/All the Right Movies. Speaking of Patreon, a special mention for our Director's Chair level patrons, who are Adam Cowie, Adam Yates, Andrea Barker-Syed, Anna Randall, Damien Lennox, Gary West, George Anderson, Graham Chater, Jamie Russell, Just Joe, Kenny Morrison, Matt Lum, Mike Riley, Robbie D, and Robert Shearer. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, lovely guys, thank you.
On social media, you can keep up with All the Right Movies. On Twitter, we are at right_movies. On Instagram, we're at all_the_right movies. And our website is alltherightmovies.com. We're all off now to take a leap of faith or become old men filled with regret, waiting to die alone.
Wow.
Not decided yet.
Well, I think I know which way it's going, to be honest.
So thanks everybody, sleep well, and bye for now.
Yeah, sweet dreams.
I'm off to watch Inception again.